Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to the party, even though you missed the live party. Don't worry. You're still going to have a good time. Just make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you will never miss another Indian Jesus live party ever again. Quick thank you to the sponsor of this stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. I just ordered this one last week, and it just got here, and I am excited to wear it out in public where people can see. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. How we doing? So we've got an interesting one today. I had never really heard of this Richard Wolff guy. Obviously, we know Patrick Bet-David from Valuetainment. But yes, this guy, Richard Wolff, I'd heard his name around, but I'd never really taken much time to listen to him. And I mean, let's just capitalism versus socialism. Obviously, Patrick Bet-David, being a very successful entrepreneur in many different areas, is going to be on this side of capitalism, and Richard Wolff is a Marxist. So they did a little bit of actually, let's just go back to yeah, because they go through a bunch of stuff. But I do want you guys know I love that context. So let's get it all. You're just talking about rich people in general. So you're starting off this argument for socialism by saying, well, people would be happier if they had to work less. All right. No sound. I just checked the sound. Jesus. Thank you, Divine Iran. Take two. I specifically checked backstage on my phone before the whole thing started. All right. Let's back it up.
Many times.
All right.
And this is not just my opinion. That's what they've told me.
How's that?
So let me ask you this. A lot of times in life, like for myself, obviously we were just talking about the painting behind me. Many times when you go back and you see somebody, how they form their opinions, there is a certain trail on how they got to it, right? How did you get to the opinions and beliefs that you have
We good, Divine Rod?
today? If you can go back and talk about, I was raised in a family, here's my mom and dad, this is what happened to me at this age. I kind of want to know the underlying motivation that led you to believe in what you believe in today.
Well, sure, I can give you some of the milestones, at least as best I've been able to make them out. I grew up, I was born in Ohio in the Midwest. My father worked in...
There we go. Thank you. And welcome to the party. Divine and Rod, sponsor of the previous stream. Welcome. So, yeah, they at the beginning, they were kind of just, talking a little bit, talking about like how they grew up. And the only thing we really missed was that this guy, Richard Wolff, it was not a story of him being, some uber capitalist and then switching over, that he was always interested in economics and stuff, and he's always been a Marxist and a socialist.
In a steel factory in Youngstown, Ohio. But when I was 5 years old, we moved east And we settled in a suburb of New York City called New Rochelle. You may know it. And it was a commuter town. My father took the train into New York City every day, worked like really hard in the city, came home in the evening. Most of the people in New Rochelle were commuters like him. And so the train took about 35 minutes to get from New Rochelle.
Who we got here? Say hello. Hello,
And when I
hello.
went with my father, very important, we would pass on this train through Harlem, that part of New York City. And, you know, looking like as a youngster, looking out the window, it was very easy for me to see two things. One, the people whose apartments, by the way, were often no more than 4, 5, 6 feet from where the train passed. I could see into their apartments because that's where the level of the train was.
I could never live in the city. City people, I don't know how you do it. I could never.
And I could see two things. One, that they were very poor. And number two, that they were black. These were very clear signs. Even a little kid could figure that out. And so I asked my father, what is that? Why are those people living like that? And my father, who was mostly a distant father and didn't give me all that much time, somehow felt that this was an important question.
Hey, we got Kelly Green in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome to the party, brother. Glad you are here. We are doing socialism versus capitalism. We got PBD and Richard Wolff. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And gave me a level of attention and concern that I'm sure was the most valuable thing about all of this. But he also explained to me that we live in a society which is fundamentally unfair to an awful lot of people. And for example, those poor people living crowded in those not real nice looking apartments, those are among the kinds of people that are not well treated, not given a fair shake in life. And I listened to him the way a child does. But, you know, I went with him fairly often. He did take me.
How old were you at that time when he told you this? I'm curious.
I would say I was probably 9, 10,
Oh, wow.
11 years of age.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, I think I half understood what he was talking about. I loved the attention. And so, you know, the way children do, the next time we went into New York, I made sure at around the same time to ask a variation of the same question so that we would have this conversation, which I very much enjoyed. And then, you know, as I grew older, I began to get interested in basically understanding, you know, the basic questions. It came to me, why are some nations rich and other ones poor? Why are some people rich and others poor?
Fair question.
Why is the quality of life so different? New Rochelle is a suburb that has very poor and very rich people and a good number in between. So I was constantly reinforced.
Hey, we got a new name here, Splits. Welcome to the party, Splits. Glad you are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are just going over a socialism versus capitalism debate between Patrick Bet-David and this guy, Richard Wolff. Welcome to the party.
In asking that kind of question.
Now, your pops, who was your dad's inspiration? Like, if I were to ask, who was your dad's favorite president? Would you say FDR? Would you say who was he? Who was somebody that he admired and he liked?
I'm trying to think. I think the first person in this country, he was an immigrant. Let me go back. I was born in the United States.
Got it.
But neither my father nor my mother were. My father was French and my mother was German. So I grew up speaking French and German.
Nice.
So again, we're just getting a little bit of background so we understand how the hell you become a socialist.
I only learned English when they put me in the kindergarten and I had to speak it.
I knew it.
The first person my father
I knew
remember
it.
speaking highly of was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That person loomed large as a political leader who my father felt gave a damn about the average person, did a lot of things to help people in a very hard time, the Great Depression. And I remember hearing him talk very glowingly about FDR.
Now, when you
Isn't FDR like so many people's least favorite president of all time?
when you think about that, when you say FDR, so for you, you've had your belief system since you were 9 years old. It's not like you're somebody where you say, I used to be a Republican, my parents were Republicans, and I decided, I realized that's not the way to go. So I went.
Yeah, again, I just wanted to give you guys the little bit of the context. Hey, we got Mansa in the building. What is good? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. It says 30 years of education turns you into a socialist. I when I first read that, I was like, what are you talking about? But You got ahead of me, and you are 1,000% correct. Hey, we got the honking in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you guys are here. Welcome to the party. How you doing? Divine Run says victim mentality seems to be the initial requirement. You guys are getting ahead of me.
And studied, and then I became a socialist because I met a professor. You've had this belief system for 60 some years. You've had it for a long time.
I've had the belief system for a long time, but I've also entertained other belief systems. Partly, again, my father and my mother were very open-minded. They did not want me to be a parrot. They did not want me to parrot even their perspectives. So in my home, there hangs a photograph of my first political act, which is standing at the commuter train station in New Rochelle, New York, holding a sign that,
hey, we got Darshan in the building. I promised him some money talk, and we, in fact, are getting into the money talk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please go check out Darshan's channel. I was just checking out a stream he was doing earlier today. This man has got it down. So just drop the link. Go check that out. We've also got indie film in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Says FDR's policies were not good for the country. They prolonged the depression. Yeah, I heard that a lot. But we're starting to get a picture here.
that read, "I like Ike," which was actually Eisenhower in the Republican race for president. And, you know, I had no problem doing that with my friends and my parents. They did ask me questions why I was doing it, but I told them why, and that was my business to determine. So they've been very good about that. I've never felt, and I did the same with my two kids. It's not my job to shape your political ideas. I'm sure some of that happens no matter what we do, just
of course,
name of it. But otherwise,
wait a minute. I think I just heard. Hold on. Let me double check.
And that was my business to determine.
So he was talking about how, you know, his parents weren't necessarily super on board with what he was doing, but they were. I just need to hear that.
So they've been very good about that. I've never felt, and I did the same with my two kids. It's not my job to shape your political ideas. I'm sure some of that happens no matter what we do.
It's not my job to shape your political views. Isn't it though? Isn't it though? Because if you are not shaping your child's views about politics, then the news or, you know, other people who don't share your values are going to be the ones to do it. Now, if we're talking about like once they're, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19, then that's different. But of course it's your job to not just politically, but the values you hold, that is specifically your job to pass them down to your children. Am I wrong? Yup. Divine Rod, he is a professor. I think he is at Oxford or something. I think it might say here. Born 1942, American economist, known for his work on economic methodology and class analysis. He is professor, how do you say that word? Emeritus of economics at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Called it. So yeah, definitely. Shout out to Anirudh. I bet you Anirudh loves this dude.
Just of course, of it. But otherwise, I don't think that's appropriate any more than telling you what religious affiliation you ought to have or anything like that.
What? You don't think that it's the parents' job to instill a religious affiliation in their children? What? Okay.
Do your kids have the same political beliefs as you?
I don't know if they're the same. In the way America works, they'd be left of center, but they're not the same. They're not.
So they're not as left as you maybe, but they're left of center.
They're left of center. My son, much less left. My daughter, closer to me in that perspective.
How old were you the first time you read Communist Manifesto?
16 or 17.
So did a school teacher give it, or did your pops or mom say read the book? My father told me this is an important book for you to read, given your interests, given your questions, given our conversations. You know, here you're getting something that is very European. For someone who's been through the European schooling system, weird thing.
The American system was a continuing shock.
Yeah.
The fact that I'll give you an example. When I was young, when I went to high school, ninth grade, the first time, the way high school is set up in New York State, my father asked me about my classes in Latin and Greek. So I answered my father There are no classes in Latin and Greek in my high school.
I'm gonna speed this up until they get to the money talk, because I do want you guys to get the context, but this is the boring stuff.
He didn't believe me. He said, "Oh, you must
So
be
no Latin or Greek, no classes in Latin or Greek, not studying Latin or Greek, in Latin and Greek."
mistaken." The next day, he went into the school with me, barged right into the principal's office. He was polite and all that, but he said, "Look, I want to talk to you about Latin and Greek." And the principal was a very nice guy. The principal, he brought me in there, so I, of course, had to be witness to all this. The principal said, "We have never taught Greek in this high school, at least in the years I've been the principal. And we don't teach Latin unless four or more sets of parents were to demand it. If
Four or more?
Four or more. If four or more want it, we will get a part-time teacher to offer it." My father then went around, found another 3 parents, and I learned Latin in school, but in a class of 4 students, because there were only that many parents. I mean, my father stopped when he got 4.
So you just made the argument that it's not the parents' job to instill what they want in their children, and then you tell a heartwarming story about how your father went to the school and provided you with the opportunity to learn Latin, despite the fact that it wasn't part of the curriculum at all, because he thought that was important. Okay.
But that's how I learned. My father was always of the opinion that what was offered to and expected of American high school students was a scandal. It was not serious. For example, he gave me Plato and Aristotle to read. He gave me St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. We're not Catholic. It had nothing to do with that. But if he felt that an educated human being needs exposure to these great works, and he was aghast that the high school made no effort.
Now, let me ask you, how old were you the first time you read Wealth of Nations or Atlas Shrugged?
That was college. That would have been 3 or 4 years later. I read Adam Smith, basically because I had a class, a freshman class at Harvard, that gave me, a few selected readings. I don't know, 30, 40 pages worth of it.
Yeah, so Monson says in a communist society, the kids do not belong to you. It is the state's job to raise them. Which, I mean, obviously that's the case. But he is just telling a positive story about how his father advocated for him learning more, but then said that's not what parents are supposed to do.
I found that so intriguing and so interesting because it was my question. Why are some, why are the Wealth of Nations? Why do some have it and some don't?
Yep.
So it was a book that entranced me. I liked it. I learned from it. I've had respect for that work all my life, and right to this moment. So that's when I encountered that.
And so when you read Wealth of Nations and you read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand both times when you were in college, did you at that point start debating the teacher? Did you kind of start defending more philosophies that were more from the altruism, more from the Karl Marx side? Or were you a debate guy from the moment you started reading these books? Or was it more just like, oh, wow, interesting. Let me see what this is about?
No, I think I was more of a debater type. I wanted to fight. But to be real honest with you, and I'm assuming that's what you want, my teachers could not or would not answer more and more of my questions as I became a sophomore and a junior and a senior in college. And I could tell, because these were sometimes teachers I liked, sometimes teachers I didn't like on a personal level. But I could see that they couldn't answer my questions either because they didn't know what it was I was asking, or they knew, but it was frightening or scaring them to go into it. I could tell in some cases which of those it was. In others, I just guessed. But the level of
kind of like when you ask a teacher, what is a woman?
Comfort that my questions would provoke made me back off. I didn't want to make these people's lives unpleasant. As I say, some of these were teachers I liked and I learned from. I didn't want to be a pain in their rear end, but I could see that my questions put them in a very uncomfortable place. So what I did was I didn't pursue it. I would ask a question. I tried to make it worded in a way that wasn't confrontational. And then when I got a very dissatisfying answer or no answer at all, I would literally, and I mean this, I would run to the library at the end of the class, bury myself in the library the way few other students did, and read myself silly trying to work out what a good answer to that question would have been that the teacher was unable or unwilling to do.
So the opposite answer of yours, not your answer. So meaning the answer to the question you were asking. As if the teacher was to answer a question that they didn't have, you'd go try to find the answer that they should have given.
That's right.
Okay. Wait till we get into it, guys. They're, like I said, they're just winding up. Wait till they get into it. He is so wrong about so many things. And my dad always says, you can't be wrong and strong unless you're on the left.
Exactly what I tried to do. But to be fair, I mean, I don't want to be, misspeak here. There were also cases where the teacher did give me an answer.
Oh, I remember this. This is such a boomer podcast moment. Like, dude, silence your phone. Because that's in the video. That's not me.
Or kind of dismissed my question.
Mhm.
That got me even more upset. And then I went to the library to reinforce my
There's a couple more.
sense that I had a point to make here. There was some validity to what I was saying. And then I would learn that I was wrong in some areas, right in others. But you get better educated if you're driven like that. If something is really important to you, you kind of read the article or you read the book in a different way from what you do if it's just an assignment in a course.
You're an April 1st babe.
I don't know if this is a joke. If so, then very good. But this is Richard Wolff, not Dick Wolff from the Dun Dun. Right? That's who Dick Wolff is, right? But yeah, there you go.
I mean, it makes sense. As an April 1st, my dad is April 10th, and my former COO was April 12th, and my best friend from the Army is April 9th. You guys are wired in a very
Is PBD an astrology guy?
interesting way. I hire April babies because I love them. It's interesting you say that. When I was a kid in Iran, my mom and dad would put me in a Bible study in Christian Sunday school, and I would always get kicked out of Sunday school. And because I would ask the weird questions, I said, God loves us so much. Why do we get bombed? Why do so many people died? And they had a hard time with me. They would say, sir, you got to keep your son out of this because he's confusing the other kids. So I was an atheist for 25 years.
Oh, yeah. Duh. Where is it? I don't know. Win some, you lose some.
My life. But let's go back to a part that you brought up. You said your dad was a distant father, meaning he did his best, but he was a hard worker.
Oh, you know why it messed me up? Because you spelt it like Dick Wolff. He's WOLFF. But I should get that on the soundboard here. But the Law and Order Dick Wolff is spelled like this. So, close.
So when you did drive up to Harlem with him, you used that as an opportunity to ask more questions. Looking back, did a part of your motivation come from a place where you read a book and you said, you know what, if my dad didn't have to work as hard as he did, I probably would have been able to spend more time with him. Did you ever process it that way or no?
Definitely.
Yes, I did. I was aware. I don't remember whether this happened to me, this recognition that you point to, in college or in graduate school.
Hey, we got Liquid Mineral Factory in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Says, being a Marxist today is the same as saying, I'm so goddamn arrogant that all those corpses mean nothing to me. Pretty much. And you'll see as they get into it. I don't want to explain what they're going to explain when they're explaining it, but I'll explain it when we're talking about it. But it really, I'm going to start this. We're going to come back to this, and we're going to see exactly how relevant this is. Welcome to the party, Liquid Mineral Factory. Glad to have you.
But one or the other, I had a very, very clear sense, and I became a little bit psychologically self-aware. I should put in parentheses, my wife is a psychotherapist, and my daughter is also a psychotherapist.
Beautiful.
So I am surrounded I've been tutored in psychological understanding for many, many years by two people who are very close to me. But in any case, yes, I had a sense that my father, as an immigrant here in the United States, had to work very, very hard. All of his education in Europe, all of his connections, all of that was gone. All of that was left behind when he came here. He really had to start from nothing. He worked his rear end off. I do believe, not to be dramatic, that the heart attack that finally killed him was not unconnected to the anxieties of making it here, to the insufficiency of money. So yes, I had a personal way of feeling that this system had not treated my father or my mother very well.
And I can completely understand that, especially as, a child of an immigrant, first generation American, there's a lot of time that I wish I would have been able to spend with my dad, but he was working. Now, knock on wood, he is getting older, but he seems very, very healthy. And hopefully, now that I'm a little bit older and he's not working as much, we've been able to build our relationship, and hopefully that continues. But that's not enough to be like, well, socialism, I guess. Monta says their theory of labor is not really true. The consumer has more say on what value of labor is going to be. Agreed. Monrat says, great. A grifter and a psycho. Wait, a grifter and two psycho voodoo practitioners? What?
We were always
his family. Got it.
A family
Got it. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I'm a little slow today.
They could leave Europe and survive and come here. And my parents had an appreciation for the United States because it had saved them the way many others in their family had not been saved. But having said that, and not denying it, the level of education and the level of work imposed on people to even scratch out a basic living, I think it killed him, and I think it harmed him, and it made him less productive to this country than he could have been if he were not treated the way he had been.
How old were you when he passed away?
Let me see. He died in 1931.
You were 31, so you were young when he passed away. So
Yes.
He passed away early. Okay, I can see how that can be a painful experience. But let me ask you this: would you consider yourself a hardworking man? Would you say you're a hardworking person?
Yes, I am referred to by most of the people who know me as a workaholic.
So if you're a workaholic, maybe because your father sounds like my father. Okay, my dad in Iran ran a manufacturer. He ran Nivea and Max Factor. I don't know if you're familiar with those two. You don't look like somebody that puts makeup on every day, but
no, but I'm familiar with those brands.
So my dad ran Max Factor and Nivea in Iran. In U.S. money, he was making, like comparable to $100,000 a month in Iran. And then he went from Iran when the war happened. Khomeini died 6 weeks later. We escaped. My mother and I and my sister, we went to Germany, lived at a refugee camp, and then we came out here. He had heart attacks after heart attacks. And he worked at a 99-cent store for 15 years in Inglewood, California. Okay.
Right.
And you know how.
Wow. A 99-cent store for 15 years to give his son, or I don't know, his kids, the American dream. That's awesome. I mean, you don't see that in modern Western. I mean, people don't do that anymore. Myself included, but people don't do that anymore. Monza says it is crazy that his family fled a communist country and still turned out to be a communist. No one was fighting to get into East Germany. I am very surprised at the route some people take to get to where they are. It's not necessarily that their positions themselves are that crazy. Sometimes they are, but it's specifically how they got there. And as we'll see, this guy is exactly one of those people. And it says, I feel bad for this guy. All of us natives here didn't really have to work. My dad was always home just hanging out, eating potato chips and drinking beer. Yep, that's what American parents were like, as far as I'm concerned. Ronald said the professor works indoors with climate-controlled environment. Poor little baby. And I bet you he doesn't keep it at 78 degrees to help the environment.
How it is a father-son relationship. It sounds like you love your father as well. I had till today he's still alive, got the knock on wood, he's still with us here. One of the things that I saw, if my dad was born here, my dad would have been a very successful man.
Okay, so we're getting into the meat. You guys know I love my context. I want you to understand where we're coming from, because I want you guys to be invested in not just the facts and claims being made, but the people that are in the conversation, because these are people who are thought leaders. There's I don't want to say millions, but probably thousands, tens of thousands of people who listen to, watch Richard Wolff, listen to him, take his advice seriously. And obviously Patrick Bet-David has shown himself to know what he's doing and know what he's talking about. So that stuff is important.
Sometimes one of the best things he did is bringing me here. So
stick with me.
Maybe your dad's example to you is why you ended up becoming who you are today, by having that work ethic being passed down to you.
Absolutely.
Just, his legacy is continuing through you.
Yep. And I think that's something that happened long ago and happens on very deep levels that you're only barely aware of, and that you certainly cannot control, or at least I can't.
Sure.
But I'm not
But that can't exist in a socialist society. There's no legacy to be carried on.
upset about it. I really like my father, and I'm grateful for all the things that he did for me.
So now let's go into philosophy. This was very helpful because this kind of gave me an idea about your background, parents, and the viewer can also get an idea about where you're at and how you came to a conclusion. So you say why are some people, I've asked this question myself when I was a kid, but you brought it up already 3 times now. So why don't we start there? Why are some people rich and some people poor, according to you?
So this is interesting. This is really where we are getting his worldview on this specific topic. Why are there some people who are rich and there's some people who are poor? Why? Well, for that, we got Monza says, Marx's whole goal is to get rid of the selfishness of human beings. What? That is never going to happen. So we might as well try and strive for Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism in the virtue of selfishness. Selfishness. Yes, I completely agree. I think that it's from what I understand. Again, this is not. I'm certainly. I haven't read Marx. I haven't, any of that stuff. I just kind of know what's in the public lexicon of what people are talking about, what they want, what type of policies, what all that stuff. And I completely agree with Monty here that it seems to come from a stage of thinking that, life can be perfect. The world can be whatever we want it to be. And there's no boundaries. There's no human nature that is going to throw a wrench in things. That as long as everybody just has money and everybody has this, then it'll all be fine, right? Not quite.
Well, because our systems, our economic systems are set up like that. There is no way that a capitalist system of the sort we have could have any other outcome than to make a minority rich and a majority poor.
Except for the entire country of America is richer than most of the rest of the world. Or not most of it, but there's other countries around the world where the poorest person in America is 10 times as rich as them. But yeah, no, it's terrible.
I mean, it's a little bit like sort of understanding the history of economic systems. The major three economic systems over the last, I don't know, several thousand years, at least I'm talking now, Western Europe, North America, and so on. The major three were slavery.
PBD is just like, oh my God, what is this guy talking about?
Feudalism, and then capitalism. And there's something all.
Hey, we got Zippy the Strange in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What is good? Welcome to the party. Talking to Montes, it feels more like Marx is explaining the processes, but never can imagine a functional process to replace them with. Very interesting. I like that. Welcome to the party. Yep, we're just going over Patrick Bet-David and Richard Wolff talking about capitalism versus socialism. It's from a little while ago, but I think it's still relevant. Welcome to the party. Demonrod says banking and mortgage system is what he should be talking about. He'll get there. And he's not going to say what you think he's going to say. What do you think he's going to say?
Three of them have in common. A small number of people sit at the top of this society. In slavery, it's the master. In feudalism, it's the lord. And in capitalism, it's the employer. And a vast majority of people are in the other position. They're the serf or the slave or the employee. And it shouldn't surprise you that if you look at slavery, the masters are rich and powerful, and the slaves, by and large, are not. And
hey, we got Mike in the building. What is good? What is good, Mike? Saying, Ayn Rand bucked the virtue of, her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, is an eye-opener. 100% agree. Welcome to there we go. I was like, what? Welcome to the party, brother. Glad to see ya.
If you look at feudalism, the lords are rich and powerful, and by and large, the serfs are not. And we live in a capitalist system where, by and large, the employers do really well, relatively, and the employees, well, I'll be nice, not so much.
So again, he's setting up this standard socialist thing where there's the people at the top and they get everything, and they close everything off for the people at the bottom who are just screwed. End of story. That's his position.
And in order for us not to have the split between rich and poor, whether it's on the level of a region or a nation or inside a small community, we would have to confront whether the effort to overcome the gap between rich and poor is a reasonable objective if you abstract from the economic system that basically produces those things. That's why I said at the beginning, when you asked me the question, do I hate rich people? No.
I need to hear that again, Monson. I'm gonna come back to your comment, because you can tell he's an academic because he doesn't speak like a normal person. He speaks like somebody who's writing a paper. And it's frustrating because it's not that like you're any smarter than anyone else because you use those words. It just makes it harder to follow because this is not how people talk.
Reason whether the effort to overcome the gap between
we need to confront whether the effort to overcome the gap between rich and poor
is a reasonable objective if you abstract from the economic system that basically produces those things. That's why I said at the beginning when you.
So is it worth it to try to close the gap if you're extracting from that system? Yes.
Ask me the question, do I hate rich people? No. I know they end up like people like me who come from modest circumstances, very hard not to conclude as you go through life, okay, I see now that there are rich people and poor people, and it isn't hard for me to tell you which I'd rather be. I'd rather be there than over there. But the problem is there aren't enough theirs for everybody who feels that way to get to that point. And it's a very sad reality that is hard for people to come to terms with.
I don't know that it is. I feel like people are very aware of the fact that there's winners and losers in life, and some people get to be rich and some people aren't going to be as rich. I'm not sure that they are happy about being the ones who are not rich, but that's nature. Not everybody can be at the top. Otherwise, everyone is at the bottom. Once as an intellectual will say an easy thing in a hard way. An artist will say a hard thing in a simple way. Love that. Love that. 100%. LMF says he doesn't love the poor. He hates the rich. He is full of ish. Yep. Zippy says, I try not to see Marx as a doer, i.e. communist socialist, but more of an explainer of things. But that communist money is too good, and it's easy to see Marx as a system and not an explanation. I like that too. Again, I'm not too familiar directly with Marx's work, but I've had enough conversations about it to kind of get an idea of what people who follow him think. It says, by world standards, the poor in America are richer than most of the world. Yep, and that's all because we live in this horrible capitalist society. Like, no, bro. What do you mean? Like, you're PhD. I'm just a dude. And I can clearly say that's not the case. Brown said he didn't want to say he'd rather be rich. Well, I mean, technically he did say I'd rather be on that side. I mean, we could split hairs, but that's what he meant. Hey, we got David Banner in the building. What is good? What is good? Said communism has and will never work. True. Welcome. We got Patrick Bet David and Richard Wolff.
Which is why people like Ayn Rand can be popular, because she presents an idea that suggests, oh, we could all do this.
And you don't believe that?
Not for 1 minute.
Gosh, Richard, come on. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things here that you brought up. And I've watched your debates. I've watched your different things that you've done. So you said slavery, feudalism, and capitalism. Okay, so slavery and feudalism versus capitalism. Slavery and feudalism have one underlying difference between capitalism, because in feudalism and slavery, you don't have a choice. There are no choices. They tell you what to do and you better do it. Mm-hmm. In capitalism, they tell you what to do and you have a choice. You can say, screw you, I'm leaving you, I resign.
How can you possibly argue against that? That is literally just the way that it operates. That's not like an analysis. That's just part of what capitalism means. Zippy says, Marx is an economist that dabbles in fiction writing or vice versa. Love it. Monsa says, America is far from a real capitalist society. We're a mixed economy and just drifting away more and more every year. And that is thanks to guys like Dick over here. So that's exactly why I wanted to, watch this kind of just to watch it. And then I was actually watching a different debate that he was doing with some random economist, and it was like Oxford style, and you're gonna have this 17-minute opener, and then this, and then that, and then we'll do. And I was like, I mean, we could use this, but then I found this, and I was like, yup, that is way better. And you're 100% correct. And if we don't speak out against people like this Wolff guy, then it's gonna be more and more and more and more every year. Hi, Morty. No.
A lot of times people think just because somebody is a CEO, they're such a powerful, incredible life that they live and they'll never get fired. But the truth of the matter is, CEOs get fired more often than employees do, because every time an employee leaves a guy or a CEO to another company and takes the trade secrets, that's a form of being fired. Every time a client leaves, it's a form of being fired. So you cannot say feudalism and slavery and compare it to capitalism. That's pretty, today a lot of millennials would say, Richard, you're reaching. That's what they would say to you.
So Zippy says, one thing I dislike is how processes play out. The true enemy is monopolization and centralization. Monopolization is what is ruining capitalism. Again, great analysis here, and I completely agree. And this is the kind of thing that, going off the back of whoever just said whatever about what Monza was saying about a mixed economy. And the way that it was set up is that we started from a more laissez-faire, hands-off type of capitalism. And as time went on, then the government got more and more and more and more and more involved. And so now there is a very mixed economy, and there is a lot of socialism-esque stuff going on. But it's not in the way that Wolff here is talking about. It will help the serfs and the plebes, and it's socialism for the rich. It's the exactly. It's the opposite way around. This is a government. Government is what is ruining capitalism. That the government is what is ruining everything, but nothing more than a capitalistic society. Nothing more.
Well, let me respond. Okay, you remember the story of Robin Hood?
Yep.
Okay, yes, I do. I've watched it many times.
Okay, let me remind you, Robin Hood's merry band of men in the woods. Those were runaway serfs. Turns out serfs had a choice. They could stay underneath the lord on the feudal manor where they were probably born, or they could try to break away from that situation. They could run into the forest and join up with Robin Hood. They could get beyond the reach of the lord, whose reach was usually quite limited.
Yeah.
They could set themselves out to then become what were called.
I hate when people do this. You brought up an example of Robin Hood. He said, "Do you remember Robin Hood?" And then he says, "Yes." And then he goes on to list everything. Like he said, "Yes, we all know Robin Hood. Steal from the rich to give to the poor." All right.
Free peasants or yeomen.
Actually, before we go back into that, the honking, excuse me. And again, just guys, as we're starting to get more people here, if we have comments that are a little bit longer or ones that I don't just want to flash up on the screen that I actually want to address, and I don't pull it up right away, don't worry, I am starring them so that we can come back to them. Honking says, you can't enforce a utopia down the barrel of a gun. Communism could only work if people weren't prone to corruption. If and when humanity reaches that point, we won't need an ideology to enforce it. Exactly. You're getting ahead, but you are correct. Robin Hood was not stealing from the rich. He was taking back tax money that the sheriff was taking from the people. It was overtaxation. It was not about how much money you had. It was about the taxation. Mike says, capitalism may not be the best system, but it's the best one we have right now. Yep, I'm open to a better one, but we've already tried communism. We've already tried socialism, and it didn't work out.
Or small farmers. There were, in fact, all kinds of options that they had. They were risky, but, leaving your job in a capitalist economy, that's risky too. In fact, having a job in capitalism is risky.
So you're telling me that the level of riskiness between leaving your serfdom position and just going out and living in the woods is equal to not only having or leaving your capitalist job, where you can get many other jobs, and then he finishes it with, in fact, having a job in capitalism is risky. What are you saying? Devon said he's part of the group that helps commies come to power. And once that power is secured, the professor is part that gets the rope the next day. That's how it always works, right? Capitalism is voluntarism and is the best way to run any society. Yep. Hey, we got Just Talk About It in the building. What is good? Welcome, girl. Glad to see you. We are just talking about socialism versus communism. The honkin' is having a good old time. What was I saying though? Yeah, this line doesn't make any sense.
That they had, or yeomen, or small farmers. There were, in fact, all kinds of options that.
So he's talking about the Robin Hood people. They had choices. They could leave.
They were risky. But, leaving your job in a capitalist economy, that's risky too. In fact, having a job in capitalism is risky. Right now, we've got 35 million people who just got fired. It turns out employment is risky. Slaves also, by the way, ran away. Slaves also made revolts. Slaves also carved out for themselves much better conditions than they had been born into through a variety of mechanisms.
So guys, I just dropped the link to Jess's channel. She is also an awesome YouTuber. Definitely go check her channel out. Von Ron says, corporatism is a huge problem. Most mislabel it as fascism. Yep. So he says, and therein lies our problem. Monopolism is force, the same level of force needed in communism. IP rights, regulations, etc. These are forces to protect the monopolies. You guys are on point tonight.
The portrayal of all of them as unfree, which is the way the literature does it, and capitalism as free strikes me as an extraordinary reach, since the vast majority of people who are employed by a capitalist, an employer, either live with that or they're free to quit, in which case their basic option is to go be an employee of somebody else as an employer, which is not quite the escape you might want to recommend.
Okay, but it's a much better escape than just going out into the woods by yourself. Let's do this poll. Have you ever, so this is two different bosses. Have you ever had a good boss and also at a bad boss? At different times, different jobs. Let's just see. Maybe I'm the only one. But he's presenting this as if running away as a slave or as a serf is the same thing as being stuck working in the capitalist market.
It's a choice, but it's not a choice to escape the system, because you really can't do that in most cases. And if you were to suggest that an employee can go out and start his own business, most of them really can't. And many of those who do end up in a situation that many small businessmen and women will tell you about, which is they work harder than the people who are employees and look longingly at the possibility of going back to be an employee, because however ugly and unpleasant it was, working for yourself can be even worse.
That is just that's such a disingenuous argument. Like, yes, there is a lot more work. There's a lot more to do when you run a business. But the fact that somebody, oh man, I remember the days when I just had to punch a clock, as if they couldn't just do that. They made the choice to leave that. And now, it's a trade-off. You get more money, more freedom, but you have more to do. But to say like that they wish they could go back, well then why don't they go back?
So now you touched on a lot of things, so let me take them one at a time. I took notes. I'm taking notes here. So you're the professor, I'm the student, I'm taking notes here.
All right.
So let's talk about Robin Hood. So Robin Hood was taking money from who and giving it to who?
He was taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. That was his specialty.
But was it really the rich he was taking money from, or was he taking money from the government who was taxing people too much, Richard? You got to tell the true story of Robin Hood.
Well,
I grew up in Iran. I watched it a few hundred times. So
okay.
He wasn't taking money from the rich. He was taking money from the government that are so noble. They want to do such good things for the people.
No.
And he was giving it to the people.
Shout out to whoever got that one earlier. You were ahead of me. At months, I think it was you, but exactly. It wasn't just stealing from the rich. It was stealing from the government who was overtaxing the people. I also said the great thing about capitalism is if you want to be a communist, you can. Capitalists cannot be one in a communist society. Exactly.
Maybe you and I read all the Mr. Robin Hood story a little different.
I watched it in Farsi. Maybe the translation was incorrect. I don't know.
I don't know either. But here's the way I read it. Yeah, he was against the government because he saw the government as in the clutches of the rich. And so for him, whether he stole from a rich traveler going through the forest, or he had pitched battles with the sheriff of Nottingham, if you remember his arch enemy, for
who, Nottingham? Sheriff Nottingham, who is part of the government. This is such a disingenuous argument. Well, I would argue that the only reason he stole from the government was because only rich people could be in the government. Well, yeah, but that's not the point. He wasn't stealing from them because they were rich. That's the argument that you are making. Hockney says the best example of what would happen in a modern communist society is the chop. Yep, that garden. They I think like 36 people died. They lasted maybe a month, 6 weeks, something like that. And it just the people who that's not to say that some kind of commune couldn't exist somewhere where people live in that communist thing in their own little thing. But the type of people who typically want to do that are not cut out for that type of work.
him, the distinction between the rich people and the politicians those rich people had in their pocket was a difference he didn't care much about. He would take from either one of them or both of them and give to the people that they together were putting on the short end of the stick.
So Jess is saying Robin Hood was giving money to the people who were starving. Correct. But the point that we're getting at is, what money? Was he just taking money from people who had too much money? Or was he taking money from people who had stolen that money? Taxation is theft. Who had stolen that money from the people? That's the point. It's not just because they're starving that they deserve to get money if it's not there. If they didn't earn it. But when it's stolen, then we have a little bit of a situation, as they would say on Jersey Shore. I don't know what this means, so I'm gonna. Oh wait, I'm gonna skip that one because I think I know what you mean, but I don't know if I know what you know. Monza says, if you want to create a commune, you can, and live with your friends with the communist beliefs. Exactly. Yeah, you can do that under a capitalistic society, and that's fine. But it doesn't work, which is why people don't do it.
Yeah, I don't. If you're asking about some of the, so again, it goes back to the taxation. They were taxing the hell out of the people. The government was these noble people that eventually a greedy person comes and they abuse power. But if there's one part that I get from Robin Hood is the following: you do need laws and you do need lawyers. If you look at China back in 1984, China only had 4 law schools. You know the whole Milton Friedman argument when he says you don't really need laws and just kind of leave it alone. That argument is not going to work 100%. You need law and you need lawyers, right? They had 4 law schools in 1984 and only 2,000 lawyers. And China had to make sure they get laws, or else the powerful businesses without some sort of regulation and laws would abuse other people. So that part, absolutely, I agree. Because today you're seeing a lot of that taking place in many industries. Whoever can get the best lobbyists that can pay the most money to people that they can control and campaign with, they can pass a lot of the laws. But when you say the rich and the poor, I sometimes wonder what direction you go from there. As far as the
And shout out to Kelly Green. The Amish do exactly that.
The people that are employees who cannot be rich. You're saying poor people cannot be rich. Rich, do you know how many people last year filed their taxes that they made $1 million? How many people in America?
Ooh, this is a good one. So all 7 of you said yes, you've had some good bosses and some bad bosses. So we can agree that the analogy of leaving a job in a capitalist society to get another job is not the same thing as being a slave and running away. Who'd have thought I'd have to say that out loud? So let's say, how many people? Actually, just give me a number. Just give me a number in the chat. How many people in all of America? Here, let him ask the question again.
Poor people. The people that are employees.
So pay attention. I'm looking for a number or a percentage of the population. Just give me your best guess.
Who cannot be rich. You're saying poor people cannot be rich. Rich, do you know how many people last year filed their taxes that they made $1 million? How many people in America do you think filed taxes that they made $1 million? What do you think that number is?
How many people do you think in America who filed taxes? I mean, certainly there's drug dealers and the other untoward people who made way more than $1 million. But those who filed taxes, how many people would you throw out a guess? We got 3%. Okay. Who else? In the meantime, Zippy says, I feel like most of our problems with modern life is rule of law does not respect the will of the individual. That's certainly a big aspect of it. There's a disconnect between, the spirit of the law and how the law is enforced. 100% agree with you. So going back, Hockening said 3%. Jess says 10%. Divine Around says 50 million, which would be about 30% of all working adults. Monza says 100,000, and Indie Film says 50K. That's true. It does have to be out, but still, let's keep all these numbers in mind. So let's see. Well,
I don't know.
Income. What do you think? I'm actually curious to know what you think.
Good question. No statistic in my head comes to my mind. But
this is from the IRS. It's a government organization that you trust.
Yeah. No. Listen, you want to paint me as an advocate of the government. I'm not.
Just answer the question.
That's not, I don't trust the government. I don't see the government as an
Thank
independent.
God, man, because we're on the same page there. That's
Yeah.
good to hear. Okay.
But
So how many people last year made $500 million?
I don't know what a number is.
I actually am curious to know what you think. So you and I are having a drink together. I don't know if you drink. We're having coffee, hot chocolate. We're having a beer. And you're talking, we're shooting the you know what. And I say, Richard, how many people last year made $1 million in taxes? What would you say?
4 million.
4 million people, you said,
Yeah.
made $1 million.
Yeah.
So the way you did the math was 330 million. You did 1%, a little over 1%. Of the 330 million, half of them can't work because their kids or they're older. So working employees, we have 150 million people in America that actually work. And out of the 150 million that work, 1% makes around 460. 1% makes 460. If you know how they say you're in the 1%, you make 460. 500,000 people last year filed in their income taxes that they made over $1 million. 500,000. It's not like it's only 18 people.
Right on the nose. 500,000 people. So a little late with that, but not a bad guess. Not a bad guess, but Indie Film got it on the nose. And there is, you know, the aspect with hyperinflation. But yeah. So and I'll let PBD make the point a little bit better than I can. But it's not some tiny club that nobody's in.
It's not like it's only 62,000 people. It's 500,000 people last year made $1 million in America. If you and I were talking and you were to say, I climbed Mount Everest and I'm the only one that did it after 65 years old, you're the only one. I'd be like, oh my, I can never do it. I have a hard time sometimes climbing my office here, you know, 3 stories. I'm going crazy. You climb Mount Everest. That's impossible. I get that argument that not everybody can climb Mount Everest. But if Richard, 500,000 people in America can make $1 million, don't you think 1 million people can make $1 million?
That's a great question. If you think, or if 500,000 people are making $1 million, why can't a million people? Why can't a million people make $1 million? Seems to make sense. Let's see how he answers.
Don't you think more people can make $1 million?
No.
You don't believe that?
No, not for 1 minute.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What's your argument? How do you argue that part, though? So 500,000, Richard, made $1 million last year. That's a lot of people.
Right. But in order for there to be 500,000 people who make $1 million, then there have to be an awful lot of people who make very little, which we've always had. Capitalism has always produced and reproduced vast numbers of poor people. As a system, it is very efficient in reproducing vast poverty.
His argument isn't off in the sense that there's not enough room for everybody to be at the top. But that's not what we're talking about. Oh, I missed this one. I'll come back to it in a sec. What we're talking about is making $1 million. So if you want to make the argument that if everyone were to make $1 million, then that would no longer be a great salary, that's a different argument. But you saying that there's not enough when we're already halfway there just doesn't track. How many millionaires were there 100 years ago? Probably a lot less than 500,000. So what's the logic? I've heard what you think, but I haven't heard why. This be said, well, law can simply invalidate the individual because that's how the rules are. It's legal, and those rules can come at a great cost. As the government masses, was that a, I don't know where that was going. Capitalism, yeah, 100%. Capitalism has destroyed, and nothing better has destroyed poverty like capitalism. I mean, that's it. There's nothing else. I know it's terrible. Google and Facebook CEOs made $1. I think they made a little bit more than $1, and I really don't want to get into a whole thing about when CEOs pay tax, but they pay taxes on the business. They don't pay a lot of taxes on their personal income because they write-offs and stuff. But there's a lot of costs that go in to the business itself. And then the reason the stuff they don't have to pay is because the government is giving these big companies tax cuts instead of people like us. Any film says that's right. There aren't really any poor people in China or North Korea. They just prefer to starve to death and die. Not looking so good for you, Dick Wolf.
It might be nice to focus on the rich at the other end, but they are relatively small in number compared to those who really are having a hard time. And you could, I suppose, blame it on the individual. That would be very convenient for those who are rich, because then they could claim, oh, it's because of me, rather than a system that assigns these roles. But
how horrible for people to actually understand their value as individuals. Wait, that sounds pretty good to me. Zimmy says, if you're doing the ellipses, I'm assuming you have more to come. So don't do that unless you want me to wait for the other comment. But Zippy says, if laws stopped bothering people that do not harm other people, costs will go down as you shrink government and their enforcers, as people would seek to work together more so than abuse law. 100%. It's I'm a libertarian, so the less government, the better. The less government, the better. All the government does is inflate costs and make things more confusing. I mean, literally, there's nothing that the government does that makes our life better that couldn't be done even better by the private sector, except maybe the military. Yeah, I think we need a military, but other than that, everything should be privatized, and we should have a tiny, tiny, tiny little government.
You know, the master knew that the reason he was a master was because his father and mother were masters. And the slave understood that he was...
You're saying in the world of business, or you're saying the master who owned slaves?
The master who owned slaves.
Okay.
And the slave understood he was a slave mostly because his mother and father were slaves, and that's how the system reproduced the people. And at the top of capitalism, there is a relatively small class. I went to school with them for 10 years. I really do know them pretty well, and a good number of them are my friends to this day.
Why does that not surprise me? So a bunch of rich people have this, you're in this group of a bunch of rich people. They're all capitalists, but you're the odd man out, but you don't actually know any people who would be affected in the ways that you're talking about. You're just talking out your tuchus.
But that's a self-reproducing group that does let others in from time to time.
You got to stop hanging around with Harvard, Yale, and Stanford people. You got to get out and go to Glendale Community College.
So Jess says, sometimes the government helps us when we are oppressed by these greedy CEOs. A CEO has no power to oppress you without government protections. The only reason that anything could be construed as oppression from a company in a capitalist society is if the government is forcing you to be involved with them. You cannot be oppressed by somebody who has no power over you. In what way are you oppressed by greedy CEOs? Who is making you buy their products? Right, so the reason the government lets you fudge your taxes with write-offs is because they know you're in the game and bringing in more tax money, i.e. going out to dinner, gas, and other costs. Exactly. Zippy says, government will always spiral out of control because rule of law is made to invalidate the individual. Interesting. Rule of law is made to invalidate the individual. What do you mean by that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? That's because I think I agree with you, but I'm not sure I know what you mean.
You got to get out and go to some regular people like us who are not at your level of brilliance and intelligence and your peers at Harvard. You got to come and hang out with us a little. You've been hanging out with too many elitists and powerful people, Richard.
Shout out to Andrew.
Some of us small people are regular people.
No, that was over when I was, when I got my PhD at Yale. They always looked at me as somebody who must have been dropped on the floor by his mother at an inopportune moment when he was a baby.
Would make sense to me.
Because he went in this other direction. You're not supposed to go to become a critic of capitalism if you go to Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. If you're not familiar, let me assure you that my teachers...
Did you notice what I just noticed? Did you notice what I just noticed? Look at PBD's face as he says, as Wolff says what he's about to say. And you know exactly why. Maybe if you don't know why, you know why. When he explains it.
Because he went in.
All right. So look at pay attention to PBD's face.
In this other direction. You're not supposed to go to become a critic of capitalism if you go to Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. If you're not familiar, let me assure you that my teachers, with very, very few exceptions, were cheerleaders for capitalism. Every time.
What year is this? What?
Perfect question. What year is this? What year is it? Bro, things have changed. I think he says.
What year is this? What year is this?
I entered Harvard in 1959.
1959. This was before the Civil Rights Act. He's like, yeah, Harvard and Yale, they're all about, just hating on socialism, and they're all cheering for capitalism. That is just patently false. That is just patently false. Let's grab some here. A few things I'd like to see go away. Vehicle registration, home property tax, and income tax, and certainly the death tax. Yeah, that's double tax. Zippy says, look at the laws on guns and drugs. Rather than handle things based on the actions of the individual, the system assumes you're guilty first. And yes, I agree with you. Is your tax money well spent there in California? Or do you think that you could spend it better? I'm going to have to let her answer that. When he says you can't criticize capitalism at those schools. Yeah, like, exactly. Exactly. Any film says, so this guy assigned, this guy was assigned commie at birth, and I was assigned libertarian. That's how it works, right? You got it.
And I finished my education at Yale in 1970.
That makes sense. A lot has changed in 50 years.
But I've been a professor at those and other universities ever since. And in my humble opinion, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed at universities across the nation from 1959 to 2023. I think this might have been last year. Let's call it 20 so this is from 2020. So nothing has changed on college campuses from 1959 or 1970 today, according to Dick. I don't know what to say, guys. I don't know what to say.
It is the same today. I mean, I go around the country. I speak every year in, 20, 25 college and university settings, from state schools and community colleges all up to private universities. And the combination of ignorance, there's no nice way to say this, the combination of ignorance about capitalism and socialism and all these kinds of questions, and the combination of that ignorance for many, and a kind of weird confidence in a point of view for which they have no support at all, teaches me, since these are perfectly nice and intelligent people, that this remains a taboo topic for most kids. They do not, as they go through college, whether it's community college or a university, they are not exposed. They can't be to anybody who takes this stuff, the critique of capitalism, seriously. They're just not given the opportunity.
They're not given the opportunity at college to see a critique of capitalism.
What?
That is the most out of touch statement I've heard in maybe the last 5 years, without exaggeration. College campuses are not providing a critique of capitalism. I would say the exact inverse is true.
By the way, half the time they invite me, it's precisely to kind of open a little space in a curriculum that would otherwise not touch it.
Yeah, because without you, who would ever know about Karl Marx? Who would ever know about socialism without Richard Wolff? What are you talking about?
I don't know about that. I think the last.
I love how well a PBD can just brush off stupid things that people were saying. I remember we were watching David Pakman, and just woo, woo, woo. We saw in the whoever else was talking to David Pakman. We were doing that, and I think it was it Tess? Whoever it was, they were getting caught up. Patrick Bet David just went in, steamrolled that.
I went to Harvard for a OPM program, meaning an owner president management program. It's like a 3-week program you go to, and you have to do a certain amount of dollars per year to qualify for it. So I went to it, and it was a time where Trump and Hillary were debating. Okay.
Right.
And so in one of the halls that says we're opening up the debate, teachers showed up, professors showed up, everybody showed up. And I'll just go in there and I'll sit in the corner just to watch to see what happens. Richard, 100% of people hate it passionately. Your favorite person in the world that you have a painting on the wall right next to you, President Trump, they hate it. They hated President Trump, and they were all like bowing down to how amazing, Hillary Clinton was. I'm talking 500-600 people. And I'm just like sitting there watching. I'm like, wow.
Not to mention that most people, including myself at the time, who were liberals, wanted Bernie to win over Hillary. And likely he would have. Film says, I spoke at 20 to 25 colleges last year, and they don't know what they're talking about. Meanwhile, anybody that's a free market capitalist that tried to speak at a college gets death threats. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what world this guy lives in, but clearly it's not this one.
This is a guy that voted for Clinton, and this is a guy that voted on the left and the right, and he's a registered independent today. So I'm watching these guys. I'm like, wow, this is pretty wild.
Remind me when we're done. We got to check out some of the comments because I mean, this is so out there. I just want to check out some of the comments.
So now when I hire people and then they come from schools, they come out of UCLA, if they come out of Harvard, if they come out of Berkeley, it's obviously where Berkeley's at. If they come a lot of these schools, even Yale, the reason why a Sanders was able to get as much traction as he did is a byproduct of the last 30 years. Socialism's getting a lot of through education and school, and a lot of socialists are able to pass their agenda to kids, and kids are thinking about it. You're seeing that. It's not like I'm the first person that's telling you this. So
stop, Patrick. I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with the fact that the spirit of socialism is in universities today?
Absolutely. Let me explain to you what I mean. First of all, I don't like Hillary Clinton. I would not have.
I said, me too. But absolutely socialism is on campus.
Bow down to Hillary Clinton then. I wouldn't do it now. She is, for me, the other side of the same coin that Mr. Trump is on the other side of, and I don't want that coin, neither the one side nor the other. A socialist perspective.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with the same the two sides of the same coin, but kind of. But I would still rather Trump than Hillary.
As far as I understand it,
I just wish I knew that in 2016 when I was in the voting booth.
Finds the distinct.
Hey, we got panic mode in the building. I like the name. Zombification of society. It is happening, guys. Panic mode is in panic mode, and rightfully so. But we are trying to bring us back from the brink. Panic mode, you are in the right place. Welcome to the party.
Distinction between the two of them, minimal. It's not zero, but it's minimal. And an excited supporter of either of them, you would not find me to be. Now on the question of Bernie and the interest in quote unquote socialism. I go all over the country. I really do. I interact with these people all the time. And here's what I can tell you, which may comfort you, may upset you. I don't know. They are not pro-socialist, whatever they say on their polls. What they are is bitter and angry that what they took to be the promise of capitalism isn't available to them.
Those are not mutually exclusive, sir. You can both be a socialist and also not like capitalism. Usually, they go directly together. Usually, the dislike of capitalism is what turns you to socialism. So again, sir, what is it that you are talking about? Any Film says, tell me again which side of that coin wants government control of healthcare, schools, roads, cars, and thoughts. Careful.
They are loaded up with debt going through their college. The quality and quantity of jobs they can get with their BA is worse than it's ever been. They were led to expect by their parents, by their minister, by the community they grew up in, a set of opportunities that are fast disappearing. And they know it from talking to one another.
Yes, all true. What does that have to do with them not being, what's the word? Exposed. Brain fart there. What does that have to do with them not being exposed to socialism? Because you're just flat out wrong about that.
They feel, to be blunt, betrayed by capitalism.
And so they go over to socialism.
That's what they're saying when they say, well, what's wrong with socialism? Because it really isn't that socialism has captured them or that they even know much about it.
Exactly. Exactly, bro. You just said the exact opposite of what you have been saying. They go to socialism because they're disenfranchised with capitalism. That's the point. That's what we're saying. We agree.
it's their way of giving the finger.
I agree with
to
what you just said.
capitalism.
I actually agree with what you just said. And I totally agree with what you just said. But this is the part I agree with. Let me explain. So you said
You're angry.
it's not that, you know how nowadays they say people don't vote for somebody, they vote against somebody. You've heard this before your entire
Yes,
life. Okay.
yes.
So they're bitter at capitalism. Okay. So now go to capitalism. So now the next question I'll be asking you is what is the definition of capitalism to you? Because you went straight from capitalism to college debt. That college debt is not capitalism. College debt is controlled by the government being able to push every debt through them to find a way to make more money. College could be 1/6 of a cost what it is today. When you got a Harvard University sitting on $40 billion.
What is he laughing at? As if that's not obviously true. We know that the cost of tuition has skyrocketed ever since these what are they called? Mary Sue loans. What are they called? You know what I mean. But these college loans that if the schools are just like, oh wait, the government's just gonna pay for all this? Like, oh okay, well now it's sometimes as much as it was before. Wait, you spent 250 grand on your gender studies degree and you can't get a job that pays well? Crazy. I think that would be the universities letting you down. The socialists run the universities. Exactly. Divine Run said government should be in charge of roads for 2 reasons: eminent domain issues and because it's an interstate issue. All right. Roads and military. You got me.
Of endowment, and they took an $8.55 million check from the government just 2 months ago because of coronavirus, and they're sitting on $40 billion. Colleges are more expensive because of government. If you look at that, debt is higher due to government. They don't have to lower the interest rates the way they are to where it is today. Giving money away constantly to bail people out, that's the government's ties. That's not a capitalistic system.
Exactly.
A true capitalistic system is not the involvement of the government trying to bail out somebody's too big to fail companies.
Exactly. All of that's what Jess was talking about earlier. These CEOs that these the CEOs of corporations that can do this, that, and the other that makes our lives harder. That's not their fault. If you were running a company, why would you not do your job? If you were running a company, why would you not do your job? It is not the job of somebody whose job it is to make money to make sure that everything's kosher. It's either going to be the government, or the government can step out and we the people can make those decisions on our own. And if you're not paying me enough or you're working me too hard, then I can go somewhere else. It's not the corporations. It's not capitalism. It's the government muddying the type of capitalism that we have. I don't hate roads. I just think that at least locally, because Divine Rod makes a good point about the interstate issue. But just in general, what's better, your driveway or the street right in front of your driveway? Exactly. Who put in the driveway? Was that the government or was that a private company? Now, who put in the roads? Exactly.
So I'm not coming from a place of let's go bail out another of these big companies and let's not prevent them from going out of business. If they screw up, they should go out of business. But that's not capitalism. That is and I'll finish up and I'll give you turn it over to you. That is a interpretation of these teachers who have jobs making 49 grand a year, 62,000 a year, 82,000 a year if they're professors or maybe higher ups, private school. Most teachers, don't make a lot of money. They make 36,000, 40,000. I don't see teachers getting up saying, capitalism's awesome, guys. I don't see that. I see teachers for 16 years saying how bad capitalism is and how bad rich people are because they're not the happiest people in the world. 16 years later, these 22-year-old kids are like, dude, these rich people suck and capitalism sucks. Who's against rich people? Bernie? I'll freaking vote for this guy. That's how I see the problem.
Hey, we got a sponsor of the stream. Oh, IndieFib. Thank you, brother. Morty. I moved his bed down here so that if he goes to lay down, we can still see him, kind of. Oh. All right, I don't want to fuck with it. There you go. Say thank you, Indie Film. Thank you so much, Indie Film. Let me change the banner here. Thank you so much. Is Indie Film. indie film. Why didn't I let this play while I was doing this? So the largest donation, whether through super chats or Cash App or anything else, makes you the sponsor of the stream. And I mean, well, behind the scenes. But thank you. Mon says the average wage for teacher is $65K. For only working something like 180 days, that's not a bad deal. I would never, ever want to be a teacher. Despite that, like, first of all, 65K is not a lot of money. Second of all, the amount of work outside the classroom time, the amount of stuff that you have to do is astronomical. So I just, this is an oversimplification. Well, yep. This is going to the Morty cam. Oh, well, that's going to the Morty cam. As soon as we can, we are going to get a Morty cam. So if you would like to see a dedicated Morty cam, we can keep them right up here. Where am I going? We can keep them right up here. And you can see what he's doing 24/7. Where do we go? Texas. Those that can't do, teach. You guys still talking about that? All right, let's get back into it. Let's see where we were.
Suck and capitalism sucks. Who's against rich people?
Yeah.
16 years later, these 22-year-old kids are like, dude, these rich people suck and capitalism sucks. Who's against rich people? Bernie? I'll freaking vote for this guy. That's how I see the process taking place. What do you think?
Good. I'm glad you put it that way. So let me tell you how and why I disagree with what you said.
Real quick, even though this guy is slimy as hell, he is still able to have the conversation. I disagree with you, but let me tell you why. And says, no, that's what I said.
I find it somewhere between amusing and ironic that the defenders of capitalism have had to resort, particularly in recent decades.
We've had to resort because just pulling most of the world out of poverty wasn't enough.
To what I take.
Oh my goodness, we got a competition going on. Highest bidder. Thank you so much, Jess. Oh man, a new sponsor of the stream.
To be a hustle. It's like selling you snake oil medicine that's going to cure you of everything. Wow. Here's the hustle. Wow. When there's unemployment in this country, it's because the employer has fired you. When you lose your home, it's because the bank or the lender has foreclosed on you. So when you have a system that periodically, every 4 to 7 years, has a crash in which millions of people are thrown out of work, I mean, the instability of capitalism is stupefying, or it produces enormous inequality, which these days is also stupefying.
I mean, he's right about that. One thing you'll get with communism is consistency. You will consistently have to wait in bread lines. You will consistently be hungry. You will consistently not have enough money, and you will consistently see your citizens dying.
You run the risk that people will, in fact, turn against the system that they've been told is what they are living in, namely capitalism. So it was a smart move. Hustler is a mixed thing, good or bad. It was a good hustle to say, hey, given our system, it's going to piss off an awful lot of people. We need to train those people to blame something other than the system.
How about themselves? How about we don't need to blame anybody for anything? There's unfair things that happen in the world. There are people who do bad things, but you can cry about it and find somebody to blame, which seems to be the only thing that people on the left care about these days. This person did that to me, and that person did this to me. Or you could just do better. Hey, we got the accent. Oh, we got the accent podcast in the. Getting ahead of myself. Welcome to the party. Glad you are here. What does the accent podcast say? There is a middle ground. Capitalism with a strong social net. I don't disagree with that. I think if we were able to do that, then that would be fine. But I feel like, and I wasn't here, so I feel like that's how things started, is that we were capitalist society, and we're like, okay, let's add this, and let's add that, and let's add that, and let's add that, and now we're here. So I agree with the sentiment. I absolutely have nothing against, having, social programs in that can help people. If, you know, I want to help my countrymen. If I'm making money and you're down on your luck, I'm okay with some of my taxes going towards helping you out. The problem is when that becomes a mode of something that people can rely on, and that becomes how they get through life. But welcome to the party. Anything else here? We got Indie Film says, yeah, that never happens in communist countries. Those systems work great. They go on forever, and people never turn against it. Dick Wolf has enough money. Why doesn't he live in Venezuela or Cuba? We already know the answer, don't we?
And the target that was chosen, and this is very old, is the government. So you have this phenomenon in America. Unemployed people don't blame the employer who fired them. They blame instead the government.
And why is that? Maybe the employer would be happy to have that person working for them. But because of things like raising the minimum wage, raising taxes, raising the cost of every little thing, inflation in general, maybe they don't have the opportunity. They don't have the money to do that. So why would I be mad at somebody else who doesn't have money when I don't have money, when the reason we both don't have money is because the government is making it hard for us to make money? We can do what we do. We are working. We can do it. Just get out of our way so that we can do it. Any film says, before everybody was taxed to death, the strong social net was family, church, community. Seemed to work out okay. Yep. And I mean, we're past the age of expecting or expecting that it is reasonable for everybody to have religion as we understand it. But everything, all of the values that underlie that, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with all of those values? Everything that is brought to you by whatever religion you have, why can't we just deal with those things? And then if you want to believe in the privacy of your own mind, in the privacy of your own home, if you want to pray and celebrate this and that with your family, go for it. Sounds good to me. Hey, a new sponsor of the stream. Once again, Divine and Rod, always coming in clutch. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. What does he say? Never forget the Halamador. That sounds like a Lord of the Rings thing. I never saw that, but either way, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
They find something that they can point to that the government is the bad guy lying behind and causing the nice employer to fire me, or the nice banker to dispossess me of my home and destroy my family and all the rest of it.
No, they're just working together.
This remarkable, and Ayn Rand is obviously with all of this notion that the government is the bad guy, which neatly avoids the question, gee, why would the government be the bad guy? Is that intrinsic to government?
Yes.
Some people say yes.
Well, historically, they've been the bad guy.
Historically and in the present. I mean, the blaming the government is an American pastime. It's more popular than baseball.
I lived in Iran, we said it. I lived in Germany, they said it. The government historically has been the biggest bully in the world. That is proven.
No, careful. It has been said by people who want the blame for a system failure not to go on the system.
What? So the only reason that people have ever said anything bad about their government is a system failure and not the government being that system that's failed?
What?
No,
that's a bit of a hustle. I would explain what the government does because of who controls the government, who has the predominant influence. Governments do what they are pressed to do. You know who writes the laws in this country. It's the lobbyists. And you know, I hope you know, that 90% of lobbyists come from capitalist enterprises.
Okay. And your point is that, I mean, that is true, and that is corrupt, and that is bad. But I don't see how that gets us closer to saying, oh, okay, well, therefore, socialism is the answer. Mike says, most communist countries do not have property rights. I know we have property taxes, and I could take and to take their houses away. All right, where did we get? R. And could take our houses away here? We'll go with that. Divine Round said 50 million dead in the Holodomor, and long before the CIA or OSS even existed, caused by the Bolsheviks. Thank you for the info. The Accent Podcast says, the issue I'm seeing in the US is that most people don't know the definition of socialism and communism and keep throwing it around anytime they are angry. Spot on. That is not just with socialism and communism. That is with everything. That is with everything. Guys, type it in the chat before I'm going to say it. I'm going to lead up to it and give it to you a second, but you know exactly what I'm going to tell Accent Podcast for the first time. Everybody here knows exactly what my number one pet peeve with language is. Semantic obfuscation. Semantic obfuscation. People will take words and twist the meanings and muddy the meanings. Words change and evolve. That's fine. But people will take words and specifically do what you're talking about, but they will do it on purpose. And so it's people like Dick Wolff here who will do it on purpose and cause the college kids that he says don't exist to unknowingly follow this stuff. You're 100% right. Monza says, if we didn't allow the government to regulate the economy, the lobbyists would never have any incentive to lobby the government. Exactly. Yeah, same with capitalism, but hey, same with women, same with fair, same with racist, same with Nazi. All of these things don't really have a meaning until they decide that's what I want the meaning to be.
Nobody else can afford it. You know, the big donations come from the richest people who are enriched mostly by big business, et cetera, et cetera. The government.
And again, that is a good observation. But why is that? As Monza says, it's the regulations.
Government is the agent, not of all of us, but of those of us who have the ability to shape and influence what the government does. Blaming the government is very useful to get the capitalist system off the hook, but I don't take that seriously. For me.
Okay, so then what is your solution? What is your solution? All of these people have such an amazing list of issues, but none of them have one solution to anything.
Me, the government is another arm of the system. The system works, some of its magic through private enterprise and some of its magic through the government's shaping and interaction. And for me, that's what socialism, one of its important insights, is to understand that the pretense of the government as an independent actor in the society is mostly phony. It's false. It's not what's going on. And that the change therefore.
Okay, so what is going on?
Can never just be elect Tweedledum or elect Tweedledee. Clinton, Trump. Yeah.
How those are that? What does that have to do with capitalism? If we've brought up the issue of lobbyists only having the power that they do because of the government. You're talking about governmental structures versus economic structures. Now, obviously, they're very closely intertwined, but you're jumping back and forth. Honking says, semantic obfuscation. Yeah, word magic is what I call that type of thing. I mean, hey, whatever works. As long as you're always using that to mean the same thing. Monson says he wants to turn the workplace into a democratic workplace where the workers vote for the way the company runs. Yep, and that's silly. That is silly. I mean, it's troubling. And I have trouble finding the words for somebody who can legitimately hold this worldview. Like, it doesn't make sense. Byron says we need to get a hold of the currency system. That's facts. Particularly fractional reserve banking, money printing practices, quantitative easing, and the ridiculous compound interest in a mortgage. 100%. 100%. We're definitely Lex Friedman does long podcasts, so when I definitely want to do some shows with his podcast, but it takes a little bit more work because I got to figure out the right places, but we're definitely going to be covering him more in the future. Hocking says, I stocked some shelves. I own the store now. Yes, that's it. That's what every socialist wants. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. This is the adult version of what indie film is saying.
Yes, they're different, but in many ways they're the same. I don't know if you saw it a few years ago. Nancy Pelosi was giving a talk somewhere in a college, and a young man, raised his hand and asked her about socialism. And you could tell, the video was right on her, she was very perplexed. And she looked kind of befuddled, took a few extra seconds, and then looked at the young man perfectly nicely and said, I really don't know what you're referring to. We are all capitalists now.
I've seen that.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. Capitalism has two political parties in the United States.
What's your point, though? What's your point with that?
The point is that
Exactly. You're just saying things. What is your point?
the government should not be made the fall guy.
Why? Why?
It's not appropriate. The
Why?
government is not an independent
It's
actor.
not the fall guy. It's not the fall guy. That's not what I'm saying. Let me explain what I mean by being
Okay.
a fall guy.
I am.
Richard, historically, you cannot dispute the fact that government's not bullied people. I mean, you can't dispute that. I understand today, some people are massive corporations. They can push people around. They can censor people. They can do a lot of things today. And no one's disputing that part. But what I'm talking about is with you talking about, the power government pushes around and some things they do. So earlier you said you're also not a government guy. Now you're saying it's an escape that the capitalists use to blame it all on government. So let me ask you this question. What is the only way I can have a monopoly? With the help of who? What is the only way I can have a monopoly? Can I have a monopoly all by myself? Is it possible for me to build a business and be the biggest and have a monopoly all by myself? Or do I need someone's help?
According to everything that the discipline of economics has ever argued, the answer is for sure you can do it by yourself.
There's no way in the world I can do it by myself.
How could you have a monopoly by yourself?
No way in the world I can. Let me explain to why I cannot do it by myself.
I mean, obviously, physically, you could be the only person doing a thing. But well, just a quick thing. It's not just an imaginary place. It's a perfect, like, utopia is meant to mean the perfect image of what the world could be. So I don't know if you were saying that, but yeah. So yeah, physically, obviously, it is possible for one person to corner a market. There's nothing about the laws of physics that would stop you from doing that. But the way that the market is set up is that there would be too much competition. Well, no. If you what was it? If you're on your own, then there would be too much competition from other people saying, "Oh, what that dude is doing is working, so let me try that." The only way that you could monopolize an industry is if the government steps in and helps you. Monson says you could, but it won't last long. Standard Oil would have lost its monopoly to the light bulb. Exactly. But that's not even his point. And it's funny that Dick will, yeah, of course. Everything. What did he say? How did he say it? Everything that I know about
By discipline of economics.
By myself, or do I need someone's help?
Whoever said that academics will take something simple and make it complicated, and artists will make something complicated and simplify it. This is it in action right now. Can I do it all by myself, or do I need someone else's help?
According to everything that the discipline of economics has ever argued, the answer is for sure you can do it by yourself.
There's no way in the world I can do it by myself. No way in the world I can. Let me explain to why I cannot do it by myself. So I need a loss to be on my side, because I need you who work for the state, that your campaign's coming up, to tell you, I need you to make the barrier to enter very, very tough and allow me to buy that company for $17 billion to put my competition out of business, for me to own a monopoly. And without your approval, I can't have a monopoly, because with your approval, if you follow the law, I get stopped. I can't make certain moves. The only way you see monopolies is with the help of the government coming in and saying, don't worry about it, I'll help you out. Let's go make this monopoly out.
Name any, just one. All you need is one. Name one example of a monopoly in I don't know, in a socialist environment, besides the government, of course. Or, how do you dispute that? How do you dispute that?
Or else it's not possible. It's not possible to do so.
Let me give you the counter argument. We have two basic laws in the United States against monopoly.
Okay.
Right? One is the Sherman you know the story. Okay. Those laws were fought for by the victims of monopolies that had come into power.
I can already tell you he's not answering the question or responding to why it would be possible to do it on your own. He's shifting the goalpost.
Independent of governmental support. The whole purpose of those laws was to not only prevent the government from helping monopolies, but to put the government in the business of breaking up the monopolies that had formed on their own. In economics, here's how the logic works. So if you look at the cost of producing a commodity over time, the line, the cost curve, it's called in economics, keeps going down. It's basically the law of the larger the quantity of goods you produce, the cheaper each unit costs you. And that's kind of built into modern technology.
Sure.
Mhm.
So if you have 500 firms competing, each one trying to capture the market for whatever, the one
Right.
that gets the jump for whatever reason in step one, to be able to sell more X's than the other guy, will be able to produce at a lower cost. Eventually, when you follow the logic, there's one guy left. The one who produced the largest amount, therefore got it to the lowest cost, could charge the lowest price, and that would outcompete all the others.
This is assuming that whoever gets the jump gets such an advantage that it mimics the barrier to entry that is all the red tape and regulations of bureaucracy. That is simply ridiculous. That's just a ridiculous statement. Myron said, without all the different skills and jobs we have, you don't get high-end specialty fields, i.e. brain surgeons, product development, and other pleasantries like sewer and power grid. Well said. Well said. But, I mean, this dude looks like he kind of wipes his booty with his hand anyway, so I don't know how much he cares about that.
Monopoly is the product of competition. The irony of, by the way, this is in Adam Smith, not just Karl Marx and others. The logic
Thank you.
of capitalism is a competitive system that destroys itself. And that has in fact happened and led to the opposition of other companies and the public who don't want to be ripped off by this process.
Okay, so what is this destruction that you're talking about? How is it destroying itself? And what is an example of that?
Can you elaborate and define destroys itself? What does destroys itself mean? Like a company, I'm competing, and then I get too casual, too lazy, somebody else comes and destroys me? Is that what you're saying?
No. This is a situation where there's 500 companies producing, I don't know, potato chips.
Okay.
And one of them comes across a new kind of potato and it goes better. So he can sell more potato chips than the next guy. Because he can sell 10 million bags instead of 2 million bags, he can produce potato chips at less per bag than it costs the other guys who produce a smaller amount.
How did he get so far ahead to be able to, what did he say, 10 and 2 million? How would you get that far ahead? And then if you did get that far ahead, first of all, you deserve the profit. And then secondly, everybody else can just do the same thing. Everybody else can do the same thing. In a capitalist society, of course. Any film says exactly right. Just like we have one company selling gas, we have one company selling clothes, we have one company selling milk, we have one company providing internet, and we have one company making the phones. And Department says Adam Smith had how many products in his home? Millions. He was a techie. He loved that stuff.
So because he can produce at a lower cost, he drops the price. That swings the demand over to his product and away from the others who can't afford to match him because they don't have the low cost since they don't have the big output. Eventually, one guy is able to get the entire market and he will produce at the lowest possible price.
I remember where this is going. Oh my goodness. He gets destroyed. Destroyed. I just want to bake in it for a minute. You know that part when you know something and people are waiting for you to tell the ending of a story, and you know it's going to get such a reaction. Just basking in it for a second. Okay, let's go.
And the lowest possible cost. The others go out of business because at the price he charges,
and
close to what his cost is, they can't compete. And so he's left all alone.
And
once that moment is reached, once he has no more competitors, then he can begin to jack up the price because you don't have anywhere else.
Give me one example. Give me one example of that today. One example of that today.
Are you ready for a smackdown? Because this is the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
Why you want it today? It's all through history.
No, give it to me today. Give me one example of that today.
Microsoft, Amazon.
Amazon doesn't have competition, and Amazon charges up prices. What's expensive on Amazon?
Amazon has driven almost everybody out of.
But what is expensive on Amazon? Name me one thing that's overpriced on Amazon, Richard.
Literally everything on Amazon is cheaper because of exactly what he's talking about.
Your argument, I want to give it to you. Tell me one thing.
That's not my argument.
You said eventually they raise the price. I'm just repeating what you said. Tell me one thing that's overpriced on Amazon.
They're not ready to at that point yet. They're not the only deliverer.
That's just not possible though, because right now Amazon is scared shitless of Walmart.
Right.
They're scared shitless of Walmart. That's because capitalism works. Now, my concern is the following. My concern is Bezos moves to DC. He moves to DC. That scares me. He moves to DC. He gets in the pocket of lobbyists. I'm not sitting here, you know, oh my gosh, Jeff Bezos is the greatest entrepreneur. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
My concern is his next move is to buy politicians to be able to bully the other guys. That's my concern. I'm not okay for that, but you can.
And it's not about the products. It's not about the cost. It's not about the technology to do better than anything. It's not about any of that. It is about the ability to corrupt the government in your favor. That is the only thing that we are talking about. The only thing that we are talking about is the government's ability to tip the scales in your favor. LMF says this SOB embodies the murderous, arrogant mindset of the Marxists of the 20th century. That's exactly why I wanted to make sure we know what is going on. Hey, our good friend Seabass is in the building. Welcome. Monza says, and then he started to create his own competition by jacking up the price because now people are just going to undercut the higher price. Exactly. If Amazon prices go through the roof, the mom and pop shops are like, word, we can undercut that. What you talking about, dude? What you talking about?
You cannot tell me that the prices at Walmart or Amazon are so expensive. That doesn't make any sense because it's not true.
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by expensive, but I would tell you that they.
All right, Peterson. Well, it depends on what you mean by you. What do you mean by believe? What do you mean by in? And what do you mean by God? Okay? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
They also make very careful arrangements not to put each other in that competitive situation.
No,
They're exactly aware of what I told you. They're aware that this is a race to see who gets to be the one with the lowest cost, and that whoever that is,
customer wins.
Wait a minute, that's the way the game is played, and that's how you go out of business. These companies then can get together when they've gone down from 50 or 500 to only 6 or 7, and then they work out an arrangement. The history of antitrust is the history of the government breaking in at those times because, like with Amazon and Walmart, there's a reason that Bezos is the richest man in the world.
Yes, because of all the government subsidies and tax breaks that Jess was talking about earlier. Those are all of the things that the government has intervened and now made it easier for the rich and harder for poorer people.
And the Walmart family is the richest in the world. They have jacked up the prices above their cost.
My gosh.
In a way because they have no competition.
It's the complete opposite argument. The argument is John Doe's market in Toledo was selling milk for $4.59. Walmart came in and says, this guy's charging it for too much. We'll sell it to you for $3.59. John had to lower it to $3.49 to be able to compete. It's the complete opposite argument there. No. That argument doesn't have weight behind it, Richard.
It does. It's always been the history. You lower the price, you drive out your competitors, and when you have reached down to 3 or 4.
There's not one example of it today. There's not one example of it today.
Listen.
So let him go, but let him go back in history. Let's see where he goes. So there's not one example of it today, but he says all throughout history. And Amazon isn't there yet. So, okay, let's look back at the so many monopolies that have been created that haven't been due to the government.
That's the history of the automobile.
But I'm telling you today, you don't have one example of that today. One.
Hey, we got 2B Artistry in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome to the party. Glad you are here. We are... Hold on. Artistry. We are talking about socialism versus capitalism. Welcome to the party. I am struggling to find your link. Give me 1 second. Welcome to the party, girl.
We had a dozen.
What is overpriced? What are you buying that's overpriced? What are you buying that's overpriced?
Everything you buy from Amazon and Walmart is priced higher than a competitive alternative would price it.
What are you talking about? Everything I buy on Amazon is cheaper than the other places I buy. That's
Right.
why people are buying on Amazon.
That's
So
right.
if you would have taken the argument the other way around, that's where I get stuck. So here's a suggestion for you to know that a capitalist gets stuck. The part that I get stuck is if
Yes, did you delete your channel?
you say to me, well, what about poor Bobby that runs a small market with 7 employees and he can't afford to pay the minimum wage? Because when Bernie Sanders went up and said, raise the minimum wage, Jeff Bezos, to $15 an hour. And you know what Jeff said? Oh, thank you, Bernie. You just put out 50% of my competition. I will gladly raise it to $15 an hour, Mr. Socialist. Thank you for eliminating my competition. Why? Because none of my competitors in Toledo, Kansas can raise the minimum wage for $15 an hour because it's impossible. He officially put people out of business. The argument that you could have made for me to say that makes sense is, what does that Joey do that runs a small market? How do I help that guy out? Him and his wife have been running that business for 6 years now. They're passing on to their kids. That place has got, my dad worked at a 99-cent store. People would come, they knew David. I once gave a talk in front of a couple thousand people, and I kept talking about my dad, David, and where the 99-cent store was on Inglewood. And he says, what does David look like? I said, like this. He says, I went to David every week. It was an emotional moment for me because it's like they wanted to go to him. There is an argument there, but there is no argument on prices going up today, Richard. That argument doesn't have weight today.
And not only that, but the Hawking brings up a great point here. Price matching. Even if they were to jack the prices up and provide that opportunity that we were talking about for the smaller companies to undercut them, then they can just price match. Exactly. And that's why, the fact that he was on Lex Friedman, I'm interested to see that. But I'm not sure if you guys would be. I mean, it's just gonna be more of this guy. So I don't know if we want to spend our time doing that, but I'll check it out. If it's worth it, we will definitely check it out. To be, I don't know why I can't find your YouTube link. Just drop it in the Discord so I can put it in here for you.
I think it always did. That's why we have.
Not today.
Sure, it does. It's the same argument that has existed all through the history of.
Not today, though. Not today. Where today? What is expensive today?
Let's. Everything that you buy is expensive because you are.
Really? You don't like Lex? Oh, we're gonna have to have a deeper conversation about that. Okay, let's back this up.
Where today? What is expensive today?
Let's. Everything that you buy is expensive because you are not.
Because of inflation. Not because of capitalism.
Now you're an economy that has been monopolized now for decades.
I don't know about monopolized. I don't know about monopolized.
Well,
I don't know about monopolized.
How many competitors to Amazon do you think there are?
Walmart, Target, Five Below, Dollar Tree. I mean,
depends on what product you're talking about. If you're talking about Prime, if you're talking about their.
In general, most people these days are buying online from a very small number of general providers.
Yeah, I like I said to you, I am concerned about Amazon moving to DC to hire the best lobbyists and pay them the best money to make it harder for small business owners to compete them with the help of government.
So yeah, again, like the fact is they sell everything, so everybody is their competitor. They sell food, they sell clothing, they sell electronics. Who is not their competitor? What are you talking about? So Hawking, you never watched Lex. So he's a little bit dry and not super exciting, but he's very, very, very intelligent, and he's really good at making his show for the people. Like he's good at adjusting his style for the guests that he has, if that makes sense. So I mean, it's usually like 3-hour podcasts. I have the Mr. Beast episode on my playlist when that whole thing was going on. I was going to see if that was relevant. Now it's a little late to catch that wave, so maybe we'll do that eventually. But yeah, he is definitely somebody to check out. That's also another good point, Matza. Anybody can sell their products on Amazon. So how's that a monopoly? In film says, strange that most people today buy things online. It's almost like the government shut down every other business for 2 years. What? Yeah, that's what a government will do.
Yeah, but you're then just jumping into the story at a particular moment. Amazon understood. First, it has to destroy all the little department stores and everything that they've done, just like Walmart. one as a deliverer, the other one as a brick and mortar. Okay, they did that over the last 40 years in cooperation with the People's Republic of China, for whom they became the mass distributor. They took care of wiping out 9/10 of their competition. Now they have a de facto monopoly. They want to, and they can in many areas, raise prices above cost because they have no competitor.
But they don't, because if they did, that would create the opportunity for the competition that you're talking about. This is a PhD multiple times over. And I'm not saying I'm smarter than him, but Patrick Bet-David definitely is. So, what is going on? How is this a real person? How is this somebody whose name I've heard before? Guys, really quick, I just wanted to ask you to do me a huge favor. The number one thing that will help these parties grow is if you take the URL or hit that share button, plaster this all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other YouTube channels, in the comments, wherever. Please just take that link and blast it all over. I'm so happy to see some new faces, and I want that to continue.
But let me finish. There's a risk. There's a risk that people like you and people like me become critics, and that we can reach the victims who are overpaying with our criticism.
Victims with our criticism
about their operating a monopoly.
And then they get brainwashed to your criticisms being legitimate because you're an academic, so you can use these words and say things in a way that people don't understand. And just like the Accent podcast said, people are throwing around words like socialism and capitalism and all of this stuff without having any idea what they mean. Good job. Good job. Are you saying there's no going back to communism in America, or there's no going back? We're headed to communism in America. That could go either way. Monza says Keynesian economists are hucksters, and every Marxist is a Keynesian economist. Austrian economics is true economics. This is a lot of what Dave Smith talks about on his podcast. He is, if you're not familiar, the stand-up comedian gun, super libertarian, awesome dude. I don't know. There you go. The Mises Caucus took over what was the Gary Johnson Libertarian Party. And so I'm very interested to see over the next 2 years what the Mises Caucus does with the Libertarian Party. Very, very excited about that.
They know that. How do they deal with that? Buy the Washington Post if you're Jeffrey Bezos. Put yourself in a position to shape the narrative.
I agree, Seabass. It's dogmatic thinking. That is the one obstacle to the downfall of America. If we can get past dogmatic thinking, we're good. If we can get past dogmatic thinking, we are good. But I'm trying. But hey, you keep showing up, so we're all doing our part.
Narrative, so that you can now get to the...
Let's back that up. I don't know what he was saying.
With our criticism.
Oh, yeah, his criticism.
And that we can reach the victims who are overpaying with our criticism about their operating a monopoly. They know that. How do they deal with that? Buy the Washington Post if you're Jeffrey Bezos. Put yourself in a position to shape the narrative so that you can now get the government to do what capitalists always want the government to do, namely to reinforce, to protect, and to extend whatever their needs are. And in this case, it's the need to perpetuate a monopoly position they were able to acquire. That's what they do.
I agree. So then the core issue, Richard, here becomes the issue that goes even deeper that I think about is the issue becomes our current election system and the model doesn't work. If I can buy my Congress.
Hey, we got a resident Aussie Chester in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, my good friend. We are talking with Patrick Bet-David and Richard, aka Dick Wolff. Not that one, the worst one. Welcome to the party, brother. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Any film says, notice how Wolff is getting way more aggressive, closer to the camera and animated, the more and more his positions are challenged. This is what happens with people who don't often get challenged. They just sit in their room, they sit in their classroom, And it's just accepted that what I say goes. What I say is true. What I say is right. Well, not always. Not always. And if you don't check yourself, you're going to wreck yourself.
My senators, my governors, my politicians, my presidents, if I can buy them, guess who controls them? There's these big, too big to fail companies that can go around and push their weight around. They can control them. You're saying not true?
No, I agree on that. I couldn't agree more.
Let me ask you this. You're somebody that's well-read. You've been around. You have way more experience on this than me. What is an alternative to the model that we have today where politicians can't be bought? How do you fix that? I'm curious.
Socialism.
Well, I think you have to change the system at the base. You're not going to change it. We've tried every...
What does that mean? What does that mean? What is it that you would like to do? I would like to change the system. Okay, how do we change the system? We need to rebuild it from the ground up. Okay, how do we rebuild it from the ground up? We need to change our... You're not saying anything. You're not saying anything.
Reform imaginable. Those folks get around them. They evade them. They weaken them. They repeal them.
Guys, I couldn't find 2B Artistry's link before, but I just dropped it in the chat. Please go check out her channel. She does some awesome art stuff, and it is mesmerizing.
For me, the fundamental issue is the way we've organized the economy. And that goes back to the beginning of our conversation, Patrick. If you have a small number of people who are employers, grabbing all the profit into their hand, and the vast majority of people are wage earners, you've set yourself up to fail.
No. We've already, as you said, we've already gotten over this. And that is not how you set up yourself to fail. That is how you set yourself up to win, as we have done so in all the first world countries. Brown said a good comparison is McDonald's versus In-N-Out. There's more Mickey D's, larger menu, In-N-Out, smaller menu, and managers make $100K. And I believe the average In-N-Out makes more than the average Mickey D's. That's interesting. There's a lot going on there. So this is, can you, because I get all of this, but can you pick this apart, and why is this a good comparison? Why is this a good comparison to what we're talking about? Help me out here.
Those minorities, precisely because they are a minority.
Hold up. Are we pulling the race card?
Bring all the profit into their hand, and the vast majority of people are wage earners. You've set yourself up to fail. Those minorities, precisely because they are a minority. Employers are a small, special interest minority group in our society. They want profit because that's their...
We all want profit.
Reward. I get that. So they do what's useful to that.
You ever ran a business? Have you ever ran a business?
Yes, but let me just finish. So they buy politicians because that's part of what you do to be a successful capitalist. Suppose, just to answer your question, suppose the way business was organized wasn't hierarchical. An owner, a board of directors at the top, a tiny group, making all the basic decisions and telling the vast majority of employees where to stand, where to sit, when to come, where to go, and keeping the product of their labor at the end of the day. If we didn't have that, suppose we didn't have that bifurcation.
Okay. Unless you're about to tell me what we are going to have, then we're just treading over the same thing that we've been doing for the last hour. What is the alternative?
The employer and his group and the employees, small group, majority, minority, majority. Yep. Suppose we had, here it comes.
Okay, here it comes, guys. If you haven't been paying attention, finally, after 2 hours, he is finally going to give us his solution. I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready.
A different economic arrangement.
A different economic arrangement. Oh! Problem solved. World fixed. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. He saved the world. A different economic arrangement. I can't believe I never thought of that.
Let's call it, for lack of a better word, economic democracy, or let's call it worker co-op. Here's the way it works. Everybody in an enterprise is equal. One person, one vote. We decide together what we're going to produce, what technology we're going to use, where we're going to produce, and what we're going to do with the output.
Okay, let's just try this with the three of us on screen right now. Let's vote on the type of technology that we're going to use to build the microphones that we're using to make my broadcast with your show and your show to begin with. Oh, what's that? You don't know how microphones work? Okay, maybe you do know how microphones work. Okay, what's the best way to broadcast? Should we go on YouTube? Should we use something like StreamYard? Should we? Oh, you don't. You just sit in front of your computer and somebody sends you a link. and you don't actually know anything about anything. But you should get the same vote on how YouTube works because yeah, right? And exactly, as we've mentioned, you can build your co-op. Just go. Just go for it. And when it works, then everybody else is going to be like, oh man, Richard Wolff, his commune is so amazing. His co-op is so amazing. We need to copy that. I wonder why. Yeah, he's being vague because the typical communist central planning is impossible and results in millions dead.
No split between employer and employee because we, the employees, are collectively our own boss. The desire of 95% of the small businesses I've ever spoken to is to be my own boss. Here's a way for the employees to run the business. And guess what? If the employees and the employers are the same people, there isn't a split on what the government is supposed to do. Because if you lower your own wages to make more profits, you're just moving your money from one pocket to the other. It's an idiot's activity. It is a new world which maybe can support a government that genuinely respects one person, one vote, instead of pretending to do that. And you and I both know who controls the government, who controls and buys the votes, and all the rest.
Exactly, Mansa. No, none of y'all. Oh, I can't. We're not cursing. But like, imagine when you can just as easily, for free, go on this very site and make your own channel. And people do come in here and do it. Mainly it's from Twitch, so I think maybe that's a Twitch thing. But people will come in and be like, this is boring. Let's watch something else. Like, excuse me? You just came into my show. And I'm in the middle of a conversation. And you want me to stop that conversation so that I can put on something that somebody I've never heard of before, somebody who has never supported me before, somebody I have no idea whether I could put on anything that you would enjoy. You should get a vote. Nope. Your vote is to be here or to not be here. And every one of you that choose to be here, I love it. Bonaround says his co-op ends in starvation. Also, how are HOA dealings? Pretty much the same. And the people who own business take all the risk and liability, not to mention all the capital that it takes to start the business in the first place. But you should just get to show up afterwards. You know what? This sounds like modern woman talk. You just want to show up at the finish line and pick the winners. You don't want to have to do any of the work. You just want to reap the benefits. I get it now. I get it.
You ever owned a business before?
I've worked on several businesses. I've started 2 or 3. I've been on boards of directors.
When you started those 2 or 3, what happened to your businesses?
Some went out of business, some survived.
The ones that survived, how long did they survive?
They're still going. Some of them are 30 years old.
Are they profitable or non-profitable?
Well, it depends on what you mean by profit, but they had.
Profit means positive gain in money. Is there another definition for profit in the context of business?
Net revenue, and that's how they survived and grew.
How dare you make profit? You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Richard, to be making profit. How dare you make profit off of people's back? How dare you run a profitable business? Oh, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Professor Richard Wolff.
That's how we started, Patrick. I don't hate rich people. I understand they're players in a system.
I'm just going to play that system too, and then say these vague things and make everybody seem like I'm better than them, even though I'm exactly the same. And any film, absolutely. I watched I don't know if you watched the James O'Keefe video. I mean, it was put out a lot of places, obviously not on the Project Veritas channel, but I saw it on Tim Pool's channel, and really marks the end of an era. I mean, it marks the end of investigative journalism as we know it. I mean, James is still going to go do his thing, but the resources that he had by building Project Veritas, and I don't know if I think he was a founder. I don't know if he was the sole founder or what, but that's why no Project Veritas was trending on Twitter. Because there is no Project Veritas without James O'Keefe. Yeah, definitely. He is gone. And there you go. Yeah, competition and another will arise.
I'm a player in the system too. I breathe the foul air. I buy goods that are made in China with the wrong conditions. You know, my sneakers are made by children in Indonesia. I get it. I try to avoid patronizing them. But yeah,
I don't see a problem with that.
That's why I'm criticism of the system. I don't want to be in it either.
But what's wrong?
So don't. Especially now. Like, fine, when you're coming up and you're 35, you've got to be doing something. But you're old. You got money. You're a tenured professor. Give away all your money. Pay your bills. And practice what you preach. It's not just in the church, guys. It's not just in the church. These people are out here, and they have sometimes just as much, if not more, power than your local church, who's saying stuff like this. It's the same thing. Dogmatic thinking.
Okay, let me ask you a different question. Are you in your house, or are you in your at a different building? In your house?
In my house.
Who chose the paint on your wall? Who chose it?
My wife and I.
Your wife and you. Okay, who chose the? If I come to your house and I walk around the sofas and the couches, who picked it? Who chose it? Both of you.
Yeah.
What did she pick and you didn't pick?
This is great. As he goes on, if you're aware of that and you don't avoid it, that's one thing. Because none of us avoid it. We all buy this shit. But if you're going to make your livelihood the money that you use to buy these sneakers, saying how bad it is, you just don't have a leg to stand on. He kind of has more power since he was teaching a whole generation on minds to think this way. But according to him, he was the only one presenting a little window that kids could finally, for the first time in their lives, see this brand new thing called socialism that they'd never heard of before.
Better cook, you or her?
Well, I want to go back. I want to hear this point.
House and I walk around the sofas and the couches. Who picked it? Who chose it? Both of you?
Yeah.
What did she pick and you didn't pick? Who's a better cook, you or her?
I honestly, I think me.
Make sure she doesn't see this, by the way.
Oh, she's sitting in the next room hearing all of this.
Okay, all good. What's her name, by the way?
Harriet.
Harriet. Hello, Harriet.
So before we go on, 40% of you, it's only 5 votes, but 40% of you said you would work harder for the same amount of money. I would love an explanation. That's the point to me. That's the point. I'm not just, if it was, is this a cup? Yes or no? That's not a fun question. He definitely has daddy issues. Wow. It's something like 13-1 on conservative teachers. You remember the project, we were just talking about Project Veritas. Project Veritas did a sting on one of the schools, I think it was Connecticut, where the guy literally said he would not hire any conservatives. And I think he was saying the same thing about Christians. I could be mistaken on that part, but certainly he said no conservatives. Any Film says, those of you who said you would work harder for the same amount of money, please send me your resumes. That's what I'm saying. Word. Isn't what discrimination? I thought it was asking, would you take up more responsibilities or just quit? I didn't see the word quit. So would you would change then? So you would not work harder for the same well, that's quit and do what? Because yeah, I guess that's an interesting point. But I mean, it was relevant to what he was saying, that that people who have a higher stake in the company will, or rather, people who have a lower stake in the company will work harder because we're giving them control over. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Anyway, so you are a better cook than she is, right?
Yeah, because in my house where I grew up, we couldn't go in the kitchen. The kitchen was the kingdom of my mother. and only she could do anything in there. Her husband, my father, couldn't get in there either. That was her.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
So either. But you know what it does? It makes the children, like my sister and I, very eager to be and work in the kitchen.
Wow, you just explained capitalism.
Yeah.
You just explained capitalism. You just explained the structure of corporation. Your mother was the chairman of the board in the kitchen, and she told you guys you got to earn your way to get in the kitchen. You worked your tail off to learn, and now you're a better cook than Harriet. Congratulations for capitalism.
I wish she had done what you say. I wish she had said you could earn your way. But she was a real capitalist. You weren't getting in.
I love your mother.
No matter how hard you worked, you weren't getting into the chosen circle. And that is, you're right, that is capitalism.
That is so, come on, dude. Like, what? Come on.
Are as well, though. You are a capitalist because when you cook, you said you're a better cook than your wife. So if your wife says to you, honey, this, not 7 minutes, put it for 20 minutes, are you going to listen to her?
Well, it depends. If she has a good point to make, I'd have to take it.
It depends.
But I would,
you could consider it. But who's the final decision maker of the food that you're going to cook?
It's a consensus.
No, it's not. You're the chairman of the board of the food.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But my wife would enjoy this because she would recognize that your need, for example, to have somebody be the chairman, that's your accommodation. I understand that's how this system works, but that's why I'm against it.
I mean, I'm giving you a hard time, but the point I'm trying to make is the fact that somebody needs to make the decision. You know, one night I rented out, where were we? Were we in Yucca Valley? I rented this house and we went out and I said, guys, we got to come out with a code of honor. We're running the sales office.
So this is something I learned recently, Monza, that there's a difference between personal property and private property. So as I'm saying this, I realize I don't remember enough about what it is to explain this, but I'm going to try anyway because it's my show and you don't get a vote. So private property is a much more specific thing that I think relates to property or land. I don't remember where I heard this. God damn it. But things like the computer would be personal property. And I think the socialists make that distinction very important. But I'm with you.
So we got to come up with a code of honor on how we run this office. So I rent this place. We go out. I'm hoping we're going to finish early so we can play some games. We had foosball table, pool table, movies. We go out there and we said, we're going to come up with what's got to be written as a code. Okay. We're going through this. And all of a sudden, one guy, Philip, he says, what? We have to use what? He says, we have to use parliamentary law. 100% of people have to agree on what the code's got to be. And we're sitting there like, okay, let me allow them to make this decision for themselves. So it's like a buy-in. Let me be this.
All right, we got, so private property is owned by a private individual or a group of private individuals. It is generally land and or real property. Personal property is those things owned by a specific individual, be those items land, money, jewelry, electronics, or those. Okay, that's they belong to one person and is there and are theirs alone. I knew something. I knew something about something. I know things sometimes.
Incredible leader that brings everyone together. Do you know what time we went to sleep? I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let him tell you. Mario, what time did we go to sleep?
6 in the morning.
Okay, 6 in the morning. I had a movie for them to watch. Here's the point I'm trying to make. From my experience, my small 41 years of living, from Glendale Community College guy, okay? I'm a guy that's a regular guy. From my experience, someone has to be in charge to make the decisions. It's very challenging to put it a collective. Someone has to be a shot caller at the end. And typically, the most hated guy right now, everybody's watching and talking about the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. You know who's getting the most criticism right now? One guy, Michael Jordan.
Remember, this was from 2020. But I would love for him to push a little bit further on that point and bring up scenarios about, okay, let's talk about this worker co-op. Let's talk about this style of economic structure. What happens? So first of all, you have to only have odd-numbered companies. Because if you have an even number, then you're just at a standstill. So certainly not a lot going to get done there. Then secondly, even if you do have an odd number, that's just mob rule. And who's to say the people that vote in the majority are right? I will remind you that despite all of whatever, Joe Biden won the presidency. So maybe, and that's, with a stop, that's with a measure against mob rule. And that, I mean, I can't get past the 50-50. You got to have more than you can't have an even number of people in your company or you're doomed to fail.
Why? Because he was the shot caller. And a lot of people don't like that. But that's just kind of how things work when somebody leads. So what are your thoughts? I'll let you kind of rebuttal to that.
A long time ago, we believed that in order for any society to exist and function, there had to be the guy who makes the decision, and we called him the king or the emperor or the czar or whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
oh, okay, thank you. I mean, I hate these woke terms, but is this not mansplaining? He's telling you, he's explaining to us what a king is, what a leader is. We get it, guy. Make your point. Or do you not have one? And you're saying a king or an emperor or a czar or a leader or a this or a pharaoh or a this. Like, get on with it.
Time came in human history where the mass of us got sick and tired of being the subject, having to live with the decisions made by this clown at the top, or even worse, by his, son or daughter who gets to be the next clown at the top. And so we said, no more monarchy, no more. We were even mad occasionally and cut their heads off, as in France with the guillotine, right? And people said, you can't do that. There has to be somebody at the top.
Don't they say guillotine?
The one who talks to God or whatever they thought had to be.
Bro, oh my God. Oh my God. Tacos are, in fact, a wedding feast.
And the rest of us or our ancestors looked at them and said, it doesn't have to be. We could live in a society where we all have some say, some input. We don't have to have one person telling everybody else what to do.
We don't have one person telling everybody else what to do. Problem solved. That's not how a democratic republic works. I don't know if you know that. But we already don't have a system where one person tells everybody else what to do. I mean, did something change overnight? I wasn't really, I was cleaning the apartment or condo, whatever, today. So maybe something came down and maybe we do now have a king. But as far as I know.
And the irony, I like that. I'm glad that happened. I support that. I like democracy.
I support that as well, what you just said.
Okay.
So here comes the argument. I don't like having the king, who isn't allowed in public society, to find his new place inside the enterprise, where we allow him to function as the dictator who tells us whether we have the job or not, whether we will work over here or over there, who takes the fruit of our labor and decides where to sell it and what to do with the revenue. Why are we allowing kingdoms inside the enterprise when we have declared them unacceptable outside?
Because the government allows it to happen. The government creates the barriers to entry so that, as you said, just like your mother being the capitalistic dictator, this is, as PBD said before, you are making the argument for capitalism. This isn't a debate. This is just one guy unknowingly agreeing with the other guy. Anyfilm says the revolution wasn't about all of us having some say. It was about all of us having some say in our own lives and our own destiny. Bars. Jester said, I need another 3 beers and 6 cones to get through this. We're almost done. We got about like 10 minutes of the podcast itself, and then I want to show you guys a quick video, just a couple minutes. And then I was gonna put up a poll, but I forgot what it was. If I ask you guys to remind me something, whatever that is, remind me now. I don't. Well, okay.
And yeah, there'll be adjustments. There were adjustments when you didn't have the king. It took us a while to learn a little bit, with all the imperfections, of how to quote unquote govern ourselves. We will do the same inside the enterprise, since it is my judgment, and I'm running out of time here, but it's my judgment that what socialism really is not about the government. That was 19th and 20th century socialism. 21st century socialism, it's about the enterprise. It's about democratizing the enterprise, getting rid of the kings that imagine themselves inside the enterprise, And that kind of a socialism from the bottom up will be extremely attractive.
Why not just work for people who are better than these evil dictator-like CEOs that you're talking about? Seems to me like it would be easier to either go find a better job or start your own company. Start a YouTube channel. I did it. If I can do it, you definitely could do it. Yeah, it took a while. Seabass says, socialism is what you get when you die and go to hell. I like that. I like that.
To the people who are discovering that capitalism has betrayed the hopes they had felt would be satisfied by capitalism, but isn't anymore.
Has it though? Of course not.
What you just described right there was China. The last part of what we're doing right now is speed rounds. I'm going to give you a name. Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right. So before you get there, exactly. This is a different kind of socialism. All the other times have tried socialism. That's the old socialism. We're gonna do a new socialism, and actually, it has nothing to do with the government. It has nothing to do with all of the things that socialism entails. It's just a thing that I'm doing. I don't really know what it is, but it's a different economic system. We're building it from the ground up. You are not saying things. It is a shame. It is a travesty that you get paid for any of this. It is a travesty that other people, usually parents, are paying for their children to listen to this and not have me there to make fun of you. It is a travesty. Aaron said, free market and right of association, or to not associate with someone. Yep, that is freedom. Instead of having free speech under socialism, you bite down on a hot brick and hail Big Brother. Kind of like, a religion. All right, so this is the last chapter, and this should be a funny little thing that PBD is going to list off some names, and then Wolff is going to say what he thinks.
If you name, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Jeff Bezos.
Obscenely wealthy person who is making individual decisions about tens of billions of dollars that were produced by the army of employees he has, who ought to have some say, as the rest of us do, about what is done with that wealth. It is obscene for one person to make.
We're still waiting on Seabass to join Discord. Not yet. And Divine and Rod. I mean, sponsor of 3 shows in a row. Like, come on, bro. Come on.
Those decisions that we all have to live with.
Warren Buffett.
Same thing.
Rockefeller.
Same thing.
Gates.
Same thing.
Carnegie.
Same thing.
Musk.
I don't know very much about Musk.
Soros.
Pretty much the same thing.
Karl Marx. One word.
Insightful.
Okay. Trump.
The product of a system in deep trouble.
As of 2020, this was May 28th. So let's call it May 15th when this is somewhere around when this is recorded. May 15th of 2020. So this is right when we are, all the Rona stuff is ramping up. And he said, hey, we got Harley Rose in the building. What is good? Welcome. Glad to see ya. We are talking with Patrick Bet-David and Dick Wolff about socialism versus capitalism. And basically, we found out that the socialist guy doesn't really understand economics and actually is a capitalist. But welcome. Didn't hear about that. Did I hear about that? It sounds familiar, but I don't remember. Byron said, keep in mind how excited the professor was when his dad took interest in a subject he brought up. He was 9 years old. What the F was his father doing before that? Working to provide a life where his son could grow up and make tons and tons and tons and tons of money sitting in front of a camera, spewing BS to children all over, I guess all over the campus. But that, I'm sure you get this all the time, don't you? So let's finish this, and then I'm sure some of you have seen the video that I want to bring up, but either way, it's funny enough.
Bernie Sanders.
The same.
Reagan.
A grade B actor.
So that is you're very late to the party. We're almost done here. But it is what's his name? Richard Wolff. So he teaches at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And he says that kids or universities don't allow students the opportunity to be introduced to socialism. That's what he thinks about universities. So, I mean, yeah, I bet you could. So, all right, let's just, I don't know, is this anything important? All right, let me just let it run out.
Who was a puppet for the interests that
I just want to back that up because I know a lot of you guys are.
System in deep trouble.
Oh, so I wanted to ask you guys. He says Trump is the product of a system in deep trouble. Agree or disagree? Let's see. As of 2020, Trump is the a system in deep trouble. All right, last poll of the night, guys. Look at you. University is one of the first places you'll learn about socialism. Exactly. Socialism is the removal of God from the nation. I really want to disagree with this. I really, really want to disagree with this, but I don't know that I do. I don't know that I certainly, this isn't a necessary statement, but I think this is an explanatory statement. And unfortunately, because the church has a stronghold on the values that we would like to spread to all Americans, and the church is also based on things that cannot be proven or should not be held rationally by any adult, this becomes true. So when you take God, you take all of the good values that come with believing in a fake God. So theoretically, we could have a non, we don't need to devolve into socialism or communism without God. But in order for that to happen, atheistic people need an avenue to learn about and embrace the Judeo-Christian values that you want. So I'm kind of right there with you, bro, but you're so close. You're so close. So Harley says Trump is a product of our economic system and our economy is in trouble. So I could agree with that. Fair enough. Any film says communism and socialism must replace God with the state. It doesn't mean that a libertarian or a free market country must be centered on God. Exactly. Hey, well, I mean, he never hit me up. Seabass, you want a free t-shirt. So all you have to do is give me your information and I'll send it to you. And I'm not here, but like you could send it to me privately. If you join the Discord, there's a shirt waiting for you. It says moving away from God equals moving towards moral relativism. It is what it is. That I agree with. However, being a moral relativist does not mean that you can't hold the exact same values, by and large, as a Christian. I'm a moral relativist. I don't believe that there is any such thing as good and bad. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a moral human being. That doesn't mean that I can't determine what is or is not moral. That doesn't mean that I can't opine on what should be or should not be in the realm of morality. So your issue is not with moral relativism. It's with the lack of replacement of the structure that organized religion brings when you accept the reality that morality is, in fact, relative. So, Mons says, religion wants you to be altruistic, and socialism, communism is an altruistic system, putting someone else's needs before your own. Fair enough. Oh, Chester said that he will give Seabass a free t-shirt if he joins the Discord and comes into the chat. I assume you mean the voice chat. So, come on. That's how good of a troll he is. See, we're on your side, bro. We want you to come through the party, but you got to come through. Yep, that's exactly what they think. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the. Oh, well, that is. I mean, yeah, not in a socialist society. Were they committed in the name of atheism, or were they horrible people who happened to be atheists? They were also white. They also had dark hair. They also ate food. They also pooped on a toilet. If you say morality doesn't objectively exist, you're denying your own argument that something could be right or wrong. Too big of a philosophical discussion to get into here. Nope. No, it's not. It's very simple. I have an understanding as a human being. I have an experience. That experience has different types of experiences. Some are better than others. So I can understand that being a person, I would prefer the better experiences to the lower experiences. Because I'm an intelligent person and I can speak to all of you and see that by and large, we are the same type of beings. That because I don't want the negative experiences, I don't want to put negative experiences onto other people. Now, all I have to do at that point is figure out what makes people feel better and what makes people feel worse. It's like the game of chess. There is no objective rules in the universe about chess. We made it up. But once we decide what we are trying to accomplish with the game of chess, then there are objective moves that are better and worse. And so if we're not, when we're talking about morality, if we are not talking about providing the best experience for as many people versus the worst suffering for all people, if that's not what we're talking about, then I don't know what you're talking about. There's and I mean this is come on. The only societies that to outlaw religion. No, who was talking about outlawing religion? Hold your horses. I would never, ever want religion outlawed. Putting words in my mouth. You have an attorney. Our society was built on a Christian ethic. Yes, not a Christian belief. Why can't we have the ethics without the belief? Because again, I cannot. I tried for 20 years with all of my soul. Like, you can believe me or not, but I did everything that I know how to do. I did everything that I went to different churches. I went to different pastors. I read different books. Trust me, I did the work. Probably a lot more than a lot of you who consider yourselves Christians. And I could not get there. I was a Christian, and I was convinced out of it by trying to get closer to God. So that's not my fault. If you genuinely believe that somebody would want to get closer to God, born Catholic, and then want to get closer to God, then what did I do wrong? And so fine. Maybe I did do something wrong. And for whatever reason, I can't believe in God anymore. So are you saying that because I don't have that belief, I should just throw all morality and ethics out the window? You would not like that world. And then I could very easily flip this around and say our society was built on knocking down many of the ethics in Christianity. I haven't seen any adulterated women being stoned in the street anytime recently. I haven't seen anybody being put to death for wearing two different types of cloth or eating lobster. So I don't really know if that's the world you want to live in. You know it. Way before his TDS. Way before. Why does everyone believe so much in the Holy Bible and think of the Iliad and Odyssey of just are just epic poems? Great question. You don't have to believe in a very simplistic idea of God and Jesus to be a Christian. No, but you have to believe in some idea of God and Jesus to be a Christian. And I tried, and I don't. All right. Who's to say you're not closer to God? If you move closer towards truth, then you move closer towards God, even though you identify as an atheist. So many Christians would not disagree or would not agree with you. And so I appreciate that you're saying that. But all that does is show me further that nobody is a real Christian. Nobody believes the same thing. You all just pick your own things and call it Christianity and act like you're in a club believing the same thing. Maybe you believe that Jesus was your savior. Maybe you believe in the Holy Spirit. After that, the beliefs you have about the world and how it works will differ from person to person. I guarantee you, on Sunday, when you go to church because you're a Christian, you definitely wouldn't be at home on Sunday morning. Look to the person in the pew to your left. I don't know if it's mirrored for you guys. Look at the person to your left and ask them, what do you think God is? You are going to get a different answer than what you think God is. And then you can turn to your right and say, how about you? What do you think God is? And you know what you're going to get? A third answer. So this notion that you guys have all the answers and we're the ones, get out of my face with that. Get out of my face with that. Again, these are not mutually exclusive. So Gnosticism has to do with knowledge. Theism has to do with belief in a god or gods. I am an agnostic atheist. I do not have a belief in God, but I do not claim to know whether or not there is a God. I just don't believe that there is one. In the same way that if you told me there was a leprechaun in your house right now, I would be an agnostic, a leprechaunist. I would not believe you. But I would not say, I know for sure that there's no leprechaun. Because unlike many others, I have an open mind. And one of my life mottos is believe nothing except that anything is possible, including the existence of a God, which I still remain today. So I am an agnostic atheist. Agnosticism is not a middle ground in saying I don't know. Only. It is saying I don't know. But that's all it's saying. It's not, agnostic does not mean anything in the realm of religion or anything like that. It just means without knowledge. That's literally what the word means. And so agnostic, without knowledge, without belief in God. That's me. I don't have a belief in God, and I don't have the knowledge to verify whether there definitely is no God or there definitely is a God. Exactly. What do you mean by believe? Accept the claim that gods exist. I don't accept that there is something that could be called God that exists. That's what I mean. Of course, we have our own unique understanding that's unavoidable. Correct. Which means that you don't all believe the same thing. So if you believe something, and that's different than what Seabass believes, then one of you is wrong. But both of you are saying I should believe what you guys believe, but it's not the same thing. You don't believe what Seabass believes. There's plenty of things that Seabass believes that you don't believe. And it's very interesting to me that you guys can see this down the pipe. When we do any of the political stuff, you can see how stuck in his own ideology that this Dick Wolff guy is. But you bring it over to religion. Well, no, that's just God works in mysterious ways. Nope. Yes, thank you. Correct. Okay, I don't know what that means. Any of them says I was at an Episcopal church on Sunday, and I asked the person next to me, "What is a woman?" I got kicked out. Nice. It absolutely does matter what you believe. What you believe informs how you act, and how you act informs how society plays out. Do you though? I am the least stuck in my ideology. I have one claim. Dogmatic thinking is bad. That is the claim of this channel. Dogmatic thinking is bad. That's it. That's my ideology. If you can show me evidence of anything, then I will be forced to believe it because that's how my brain works. That's what knowledge is. don't project onto me, homie. I've spent a lot of time and energy to make sure I know exactly where I stand on this stuff. That is exactly why this is my life motto. Believe nothing except that anything is possible. It's not just a saying to me. It is how I live my life. Maybe you should try. All right. I mean, is this even worth it anymore?
Bernie Sanders.
Oh, wait. I wanted to see. Okay, so we did the poll. So we got, what did it say? 9 votes. So almost a full 10. 55% disagree with 44% agree. Very, very close there. I don't know. Who wants to give some thoughts on whether Trump is a product of a system in deep trouble? In the meantime, Harley says people take their own paths in life. We are given free will. No, we're not. It is not for us to tell them which way to go. Well, I appreciate that. I disagree, but because free will is a nonsensical thing, but I appreciate the idea that we should all be free to do whatever we want to do. Okay, but knowing where you stand is different than being stuck in your ideology. Being stuck in your ideology means that you're not willing to change what you're thinking. I know where I stand means I know where I stand, but you could easily have me stand somewhere else with the relevant information. So if you meant the same thing, then fine.
Sanders.
The same.
Reagan.
A grade B actor who was a puppet for the interests that needed to have a puppet at that time.
Obama.
A person who promised hope and change and delivered neither of them.
Biden.
A very sad mistake.
Ayn Rand.
Not a good novelist and an even worse social theorist.
Gorbachev.
A sad character who tried to hold together a
Seabass. You know, we put up a lot. Chill.
disintegration.
You could say that all you want in Discord. Just don't come at me here on or anybody else like that on YouTube. That's all I ask.
System.
Boris Johnson.
A British Trump.
Lenin.
A brilliant strategist and tactician, but who tried to make a transformation when the conditions to enable it to happen simply weren't there.
Castro.
All right, I'm bored of this. So the last thing I want to show you guys before we head over, you may have seen this, but this is a clip from the DSA. What does that stand for? The Democratic Socialists of America. Now, we just heard from a socialist. We just heard from a thought-leading socialist who told us that this is a better way to run things. That's all right. We have all the time in the world to talk about it in Discord. That's I like that one. I like that one. But yeah, who has seen this clip before?
Could you please sit down and get into a seat so that so there aren't so many people moving around? And then let me consult.
So this is with the 2019, and this is the highlights.
All the people who are counting. So everyone who is not a counter, take a seat. Take a seat. Everyone on the walls, take a seat so that we can count. When there's so many people moving around, it's very difficult to count.
When there's people moving around, it's difficult to count. Why don't you just count the people that are sitting down and then count the people that are standing up and add them together? Because 2 + 2 = 5, right?
Point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Speaker against name, chapter, pronouns.
Privilege. Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Okay.
We have a lot of disabled comrades, And a lot of those are invisible disability. First of all, in this room, I see that no one's clapping for me. It could be because I'm not engaging, but it also is because everyone's doing this. And that's really important because those loud bursts of noise, even though this is a noisy space, when we can do something like reducing that, that's really important. So please don't clap, shoot up these. And additionally with the noise issue, like avoid hissing, avoid waving banners, right? If you don't know what to do, show up these, right? I'm sure there's lots of ways that we can communicate to each other without needing to rely on something.
They haven't even gotten to a thing yet. They haven't even gotten to a thing. It's a convention for socialists. When are you going to talk about socialism?
That's going to hurt somebody else. We have quiet rooms that are available. There's a range of options of these, right? On 7, there's one that has video but no sound, if you still want to be able to observe the convention, but the sound is an issue. There's also on Piedmont 8, a completely quiet room. One thing to note there, please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people. Don't talk to cops. Don't talk to MAGA assholes. We're almost there. Just... but thank you.
Quick point of privilege once again.
Oh my
Jackson,
God.
Sacramento DSA, he, him. I've already asked people to be mindful of the chatter.
Look at this dude. This is the worst pixelated thing you could ever see. Does that look like anybody who should be in charge of anything? Wow. Honging says, you know, the entire Dem staff in Nevada quit because the DSA took over their whole party. It was reported in the mainstream media. Wow. Wow. In Nevada, well, Nevada's a purple state, isn't it? Well, that's great. So there you go. That's not surprising.
Of their comrades who are sensitive to sensory overload, and that goes double for the heckling and the hissing. It is also triggering to my anxiety. Like, the be comradely isn't just for, like, you know, let's keep things civil or whatever. It's so that people aren't going to get triggered and so that it doesn't affect their performance as a delegate, okay?
After that, we're going to go through adopting the rules. So with that,
All right,
we're
we're getting on to some of the stuff that they're actually going to talk about for democratic socialism.
going to start voting. So let's take a deep breath. Great. And so I'm going to welcome Brian to give the credentials report.
Point of privilege! Point of privilege! I hate everything that you say and do!
Hi, everybody. Brian Laverne, he, him from Houston.
And now we're going to move on to the resolutions and
Very
amendments
brief.
committee.
Very brief point of information. If you are using a microphone, talk into it directly like I am right now, and do not wave your face back and forth because people cannot hear you. That is all.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the pointers. Yes. Could someone please run a mic to the comrade in the jean jacket, of which there are many?
I simply had a question.
Sorry, could we? Thank you. We are debating the amendment to the committee report.
Are you though?
And that amendment is to swap
Divine Rod, I am not putting that up.
6 of the the amendment is to take 6 different delegates to recognize 6 different delegates from East Bay from what the committee report says. Great.
Point of clarification here on what we're actually.
Could you get to the mic, please?
So point of clarification in that the chair gave a report. There was a verbal second from the audience on the report of which was given, and then there was a motion for an amendment to that. What are we actually talking about at this point, and then what is the vote going to be?
Thank you.
Nothing.
We need to be very clear about the work that we are trying to do. It is important.
And I do believe there are individuals in this group who probably have some understanding of economics that's a little out there, and maybe their end goal is not this pie in the sky idea, but X body spray, no. But you know, maybe their democratic socialism is their pie in the sky ideal, and they're just working to get as close to that as possible. I'm sure there are people like that, but this is how the group acts.
Voting yes. Are we voting to
Yes. Yeah. So voting yes.
Oh, this is great. I forgot about this part.
Yes
uphold the delegates?
No. So voting yes means that you want the substitute 6 delegates to be seated instead of the delegation that is outlined in the credentials committee report.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? No.
So if you agree with what the report recommended, then you should. I'm just asking. I'm trying to understand what.
Voting yes means that you are supporting the challenge to the East Bay delegation.
Point of privilege. Can I reiterate that we, for the sake of our comrades who have sensory issues,
Our comrades!
refrain from hissing, loudly shouting out your opinion on a vote, or waving banners and signs that reflect your vote in front of people?
You can wave your hands, and an entire room of people doing this is perfectly fine. But waving a banner?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so now, is there any further debate on the Credentials Committee report?
Point.
Hold on, point of order. Yep.
Thank you. So
Sorry, what's your name and
my
your...
name is Trey. I use they, them, and he, him pronouns.
Of course you do. I could have guessed that by the sound of your voice.
I'm from Memphis. Thank you for asking. Nice to meet you. Sorry.
Nice to meet you.
I had a question. So Nick, Jack, what is his name? Or what is their name? Nick J. They were elected as an at-large delegate before they resigned. Is that correct? No. No? Okay, then never mind.
Now, we are going to...
Point of information, could you please let us know how many delegates there are?
Anyone know that? Hold on one second. Do you know that?
I
I believe 1,057.
Thank you. Hi,
We couldn't even count the people sitting in the seats, and we put the chairs there.
I am NDP from Los Angeles, they, them pronouns. Could I please ask the chair to, again, there was a previous point of privilege about waving around signs, that it is distracting to other comrades. I have autism. This is distracting to me. I would like to ask our fellow delegates, please, to not wave around your signs, especially during voting.
As they wave their hands. So Seabass brings up a great question. I wonder if these people believe in God. I would say probably not. So let's assume that, you know, we agree that and sure. No, let's stick with this. Let's stick with this. They don't follow Judeo-Christian values because they don't believe in God. And because you need to believe in God to be part of the industry, for lack of a better word, I don't know, to get these values, they've created this. So Seabass, my question to you is, if these people are already going to be atheistic, is it not better? Is it not better that they live in a world and act more like you would like them to act? Or would you prefer that they act like this?
Thank you.
Yes. Please do not wave around your signs. Thank you.
Your hands are fine.
Madam Chair, at this point, we're waiting for the vote to be created. When it's ready, I'll let you know, and there will be a URL projected on the screen, and you will be able to put that in either to your phone.
All right, I'm just going to speed this up, see if there's any fun stuff. And now we are headed over to Discord, guys. That's where the panel is. If you are not aware, every single show, and we could do it every day if we want, but you know, some of us are not around. But after every single show, we go right over to Discord, and then we just hang out. And it's a panel. Everybody's there. I love when people cam up. It's more, you know, like an intimate thing, but you don't have to. And you know, we can just hang out for as long as we want. Definitely gotta watch The Last of Us tonight. So we'll definitely be doing that at some point. But I definitely want to get some interesting conversation in before that. So if you have not done so, the link is in the description. It is free. It is free. For now, you guys know the whole thing. Once we get a number, they're gonna be cut up. You'll be grandfathered in. Just get grandfathered in.
Your laptop, or you can go use one of the iPads that we have ready.
Thank you, Chair. Nick, he, him, his from Twin Cities. This is on behalf of a delegate who's currently in the remote room. They say that it is very hard to...
Look at this thing. Like, really? You needed these instructions? Jesus Christ. These people are so stupid.
see the screens and cannot get a URL.
Rebecca, are you ready to share what's going on?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we've hit the OPA server too hard, and I'm going to go call Jeff.
Point of information then?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'm old school, folks, and it's probably some technical problem we can't solve. So my point of information is really a question. Is it possible that we do this the old-fashioned way and have the yeses on one side of the room and no's on the other? Would that be possible for the chair to do?
I would...
What? You want us to answer a question? With a yes or a no? Which we're only going to do? No!
I would suggest not doing that because there's going to be a little bit too much motion. We're going to take a hand count.
There's going to be too much motion
right now, and hopefully this online voting system will work soon. When a counter has gone around and confirmed, like nodded at you or something.
And the delegate who brought clickers.
Nodded at you. Oh, that's foolproof. Was that a nod or was that a head shake? Or I think I was counted.
You can lower your hand, but only when the person who's like counting has like verbally or confirmed with their body language that they've counted your vote.
Point of personal privilege, please.
Yes, what's your personal privilege?
Hi, so I know that this is kind of annoying. I know it's taking a while, but we want this to be done right. We are a democratic organization. We want to do this right. I myself watched some of the counters not count some of the votes. It's not a mistake, but
they're going after themselves. Oh my God. They're riding on themselves. I saw how to do that. Oh my God. I have not seen this long version of it. I've only seen like a 3 or 5 minute clip. Like, oh my goodness. I says, I can't imagine having to go. They don't have to. They just decide to. But I can't imagine having to go through life expecting everybody to cater to me. I would be way too stressed out. How do people live like this? Very stressed out and on lots of antidepressants.
we need to do this a different way.
Okay, everyone, by a vote, all the counting has happened. By a vote of 523 to 443, that passes. And so we will, sorry, we could respect our comrades.
I'm rising to speak against this amendment to the rules as it would inhibit the democracy that is inherent to our organization. If you look at it, most of the time that has been wasted in this body was not wasted on debate. It was wasted in vote after vote after vote and voting on whether we're going to vote on voting. It is ridiculous, and this resolution would not save us any time.
When we're raising our placards, when we transition between the votes, can we slow down a little bit because it's starting to get confusing for people?
Totally. Yep.
It would have to be after the.
Sorry, that's a point of debate. That's not
Yeah.
actually.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't.
That's not a point of privilege. Point of information. That's not a point of privilege. It's a point of.
Make any sense?
No, that's out of order.
Doesn't
Sorry,
make any sense.
we've ended debate. Okay, so now we're going to vote.
I have a question, a point of order.
So voting yes would be to make it. Hold on, could I just get through my sentence, please? Okay, so all those in favor of. We already said that that's July 2018. Okay, so
what happens if there's conflicting amendments? So I feel like we don't know is not an acceptable answer, but that's a point of debate. I know.
Yeah, that's the point of debate. Okay, vote all those in favor of. Yeah, what's your point of inquiry?
As it stands, this is Daniel Ray from Piedmont.
Okay, so after the vote, you can't do point of information or point of debate, but you can do point of what did he say? Point of.
Okay, vote all those in favor of.
Yeah, what's your point of inquiry? Point of inquiry is okay.
As it stands, this is Daniel Ray from Piedmont. He, him pronouns. As it stands right now, can we make amendments to resolutions or constitutional bylaws stand? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor of adopting the convention rules, please raise your placards. All those opposed? That passes. We now have convention rules. Okay, awesome. And now we are going to move into. Hold on one second. Okay, so.
So that was all to get the rules to what they're going to do. But everybody should have a vote, right? And there doesn't need to be a shot caller. There doesn't need to be one person in charge. Everybody gets a vote, right? This is what that gets you.
So we are a bit behind schedule.
So I mean, I just want to show you that because it's hilarious and it just perfectly underlines everything that we were talking about with Dick Wolff there. And I mean, I don't have too much more to say. I think Wolff is I don't know if he's a grifter or if he is an ideologue. Is that the right word? Where he is really bought into this, but he's just well, maybe you just need to be a little bit smarter and be on the ball. But the fact is that people like that really do move the conversation. These people really do move individuals, and they create circumstances where we have to deal with stuff like this. So if that's the America that you want to live in, then continue with your tribalistic, dogmatic thinking, whether it's the church or whether it's this. You go ahead and say that's the only right way to do things, and see how that works out for you. When you're ready to grow up and accept that your way of thinking isn't everybody's way of thinking, but we can still all get along as long as we agree on the same values and goals, well, then we'll be in a better place. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys, especially those who've donated, especially the sponsor of the stream, once again, Divining Rod. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you guys. Even if you cannot donate, that is no problem. Every moment that you spend here with me is money to my heart, but money to my heart doesn't pay the bills. So if you could, that would be great. But even if you can't, it is free to like, it is free to comment, it is free to subscribe, it is very free to share, and it is absolutely free to be in the chat and let me know how you are doing. I love hanging out with you guys so much. Thank you once again. Let's head over to Discord. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dividing Rod. And with that, we'll leave that up as we hit the curtains. Once again, thank you for partying with me. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, I am out of here. Peace.